Welcome to the show. I got Andrew Dimauro here today. He's my buddy from First Anglico. He was you were at First Anglico the entire time, right? 5 years or 4 years?
Yep.
Okay,
Piece of
so
shit.
what? Walking the halls of First Anglico, man. You were there when it was like real beat up and stuff, and then you got to see it rebuilt and super nice.
You know you've been there a while when you've gone through 3 COs.
Yeah, that's true. There was a guy asking me if I was there with Lieutenant Colonel Brueggemann last night, and now I think I got there right after he left. Is when I got there. But anyway, we'll start from the beginning. Andrew Dimauro, go ahead and tell us where you're from, and when did you go to boot camp? Where'd you go?
So yeah, I'm from Connecticut. I grew up in a little town called Avon. I went to boot camp October of 2009. Yeah. I went to Parris Island, and yeah, had a good old time there on the East Coast, living it up. Didn't have to deal with the sand fleas or any of that bullshit, but...
Yeah, I was going to say October wouldn't be too bad. It's kind of coming off the heat waves and stuff, because it's super humid and hot down there.
I don't know what it is, man, but like everyone's like, oh, you're from Connecticut, you must be used to the cold. Dude, I've never been colder in my fucking life than this one day at the rifle range at boot camp. I was freezing my ass off. I don't know what it was, but...
At the rifle range?
Yeah, it was just cold as fuck, and I'm like, dude, I'm in South Carolina. I'm from Connecticut. What the fuck is this?
So when you came in the Marines, did you decide to come in? Well, first, did you have any people in your family that were in the military that like kind of pushed you to join?
Not really pushed me to join. My grandfather was in the Army. He was in the band, but he went to Korea, and you know, even being in the band, like he still saw like some crazy shit. Like he told me one time they were in like a truck convoy, and they got like no shit like ambushed, and they had to like dive under the trucks, and like they actually called in CAS on like these hills and like took care of the dudes. But he actually told me this cool story one time. They were sleeping in a boxcar in a train, and he saved all these cigarette packets, like, you know, casing, you know, cartridges from like dudes, and he made a bed out of it. They actually got strafed by a North Korean jet, and he looked on the side of his bed, and there was like just riddled with fucking holes.
Jeez.
But yeah, so but he never really, it wasn't really him that influenced me to join. I mean, I guess we can kind of get into why I joined now, but no, like the town I grew up in is like pretty affluent and like, you know, pretty well to do with everybody, but like I was brought up still like doing yard work and shit like that, like, you know, trying to be a hardworking kid. But like when my high school graduated and like everyone went off to college, I mean, I wasn't the greatest student in the world. So I started out at community college just because like there's so much pressure to do that in my town. It's like, it's literally like if you don't go to college, you're a piece of shit. That's how they view it. And it kind of rubs off on you.
And that's why we have so many people in student debt.
Yeah, but it's like literally like you think that's the only option. So you start to believe it. But like all my friends went away, and I'm just like, literally, it's me and one other dude that I know who was in a grade above me. We were like in his basement, like playing video games, like getting drunk all the time. And I'm like, I literally what it was, I was like, I need to go and just leave here. And just, I knew that I needed to go get my ass kicked. Like that's literally what it was. I was like, I'm not doing anything right now. I'm in school. I don't like it. I was in for like criminal justice. So I literally, this is going to sound stupid, I had a criminal justice class where it was like, the project was build your own prison and like write about it. Yeah. So like I fucking designed this prison, and then I had like a list of like all the weaponry that the guards would carry. And I had like pictures of like sniper rifles and shit. I mean, you know me, man. So I'm walking out of the fucking class after I presented it, and I bump into a Marine recruiter, and he saw the pictures of like the Sasser and all that shit. And he's like, oh yeah, and we get to talking, and like, this guy was a supply guy. Like I knew more about guns than he did. Then he goes, "Did you ever think about joining?" And I was just like, you know what? Yeah. So I went in and talked to him, and it's kind of like my breakthrough moment where I was like, you know what? I'm just going to do this. And I didn't tell my parents about it. I literally signed paperwork, came home, threw it on the coffee table, and it was like, I joined, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Oh, what'd they say? What'd they think about that?
Well, I mean, they weren't happy that I didn't tell them, but they kind of approved of it overall. But not to sound like a bitch or anything, but like I figured my dad could talk me out of it, and I knew it's something I wanted to do. So I was like, you know what? this is like the moment in life where it's just you have to do your own fucking thing. So I did that, you know.
That's sick. So did you come in as a radio operator, or were you like an open contract or something else?
Well, it seems to be a recurring theme, but I wanted to be a grunt, you know, like everybody else. Yeah. And like, of course, like it was one of those things where I would have had to wait like a year because like I think the quota was met, and I was so hard-headed about it. Like they had to like, I was like, no, I want to be a grunt, you know, I want to go to because like literally I'm not even gonna sound like a fucking hard ass or anything, but the dude was like talking to me about like, yeah, Marine Corps, you can get free college and this and this. I literally looked at him and was like, dude, I want to go to fucking Iraq or Afghanistan. I don't care about this bullshit you're telling me. I want to go to fucking combat. And so he was like, it's in my mind the only way was to do that was to be a grunt. They had to bring in like the master sergeant from like the recruiting det to be like, there's no fucking spots available. So yeah. One of the recruiters in like the adjacent district was a radio operator, and he was like, I guess he like pushed Fallujah and shit, and he was like, yeah, you know, like you'll do this and this and this. So that convinced me. I was like, all right, I'll be the dickhead with the 3-foot antenna sticking out saying I'm important.
Might as well, right?
Yeah. But like little did I signed the dotted line thinking that's what I was going to get. Like, but little did I know comm can literally be in any unit. So there's like, you know, however many units in the Marine Corps, let's say 100, there's like a very slim chance that I'm going to get, not slim chance, but like I could go to the fucking wing or something. Like I didn't know this at the time.
Or like Ninth Comm or something like that a comm battalion.
Funny story about Ninth Comm. We'll get into that. Or
so you did boot camp, you got done, and then you went out to 29 Palms for comm school?
Yeah, so you go to first you go to Camp Geiger, which is like attached to Lejeune.
Oh yeah, MCT.
You do your MCT bullshit there. Yeah, like I was saying, I was freezing my ass off, and I was like, oh, this is kind of funny. I was like, it was like February of 2010 at this point, and I'm freezing my ass off in North Carolina, just doing the MCT bullshit. No good stories there. And I was like, oh man, I'm going out to this place called 29 Palms. I'm so lucky. I'm going to be warm. And I get out there, and it's just this, it was warm, but it was this desert shithole. And I was like, what the fuck is this? Ugh.
When did you get out to 29 Palms?
March time frame is when I graduated MCT like the end of February, so March is when I started. And you go
March
there.
Of 2010?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So you get there, and like any other Marine Corps school, like you're waiting to pick up class. So they have like this thing where like you're in like a holding platoon, and you're just like the bitch. You go do working parties all day. I was lucky because the next radio operator class picked up in like a week. So they have like data and wire dudes. I don't even know if that's an MOS anymore. And then like radio, and they just put us in this big holding platoon, and you just get whored out for the day and come back. But I did that for like a week, and then I picked up my comm school class, and then
that's a pretty quick turnaround. They'll wait at Fort Sill for like months.
I know.
Some of those dudes would be there for like 6 months.
I know. I was so lucky. They're like, all right, they're just naming off names, and they're like, hey, you're picking up class next week. And I was like, sweet, fuck it. You know.
And then what'd you find out? So you get through all comm school at the end. What'd you find out? Or they tell you at the end of school, right, where you're going?
Yeah, like I think the school's like 3 months long, and I think in the middle of it somewhere you kind of fill out. I remember it was so general. It was like East Coast, West Coast, or overseas, and overseas meant Okinawa. So you just basically put what you want. I kind of wanted to stay far away from home, so I picked West Coast, and that's basically it. And then they came in like towards the end, and they handed out orders, and this is actually a really funny story. Like a lot of people don't even know about this. So they're handing out orders. A lot of my class went to 1-7. Then a few dudes went to 1-5. And a handful went to... Then I think the rest went to 9th Comm. I actually got orders to 9th Comm. And I was like, motherfucker. So I'm like riding out the rest of comm school. And at the end of comm school, you do like this 2-day long field op. You're literally... You can throw a football to the barracks. I mean, it's not even a fucking field op. But yeah. you go out there and you set up OE antennas, and you set up all the laptops, and you're learning how to do digital comms. So you're putting together everything you learned and read about. You know, it's one big deal for like 2 days. So while I was out there, I got like an infection in my eye because of like the dust. Because you're sleeping out in tents. I was a fucking moron, and I was wearing contacts. Don't ever do that. Yeah, I don't suggest that. So I had I had to go to BAS. They just gave me like eye drops. It wasn't a big deal, but my class graduated, so I finished. I met the curriculum, but they like walked at their graduation, and I didn't because I was like SIQ for like a week. So I was literally just like chilling for a week. So I go back to like that. They call it MAT, like a Marines awaiting training. I go back to that platoon so they could figure out what they want to do with me.
Yeah.
And then like I was there for like maybe 3 or 4 days just putzing around, and they go, hey, you need to go to IPAC and pick up your orders. Now, one dude in my comm class talked about Anglico, and I looked it up like a month into school, and I was like, oh man, that's freaking badass. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go to my first unit and try to transfer there. So I go to IPAC, and this is like the fucking planets aligning. I pick up my orders. This corporal's like, review it, make sure everything's spelled correctly, and sign it. And it's like, PFC Dimauro, you're to report to 1st Air Naval Gunfire Liaison Company. And I read it like 3 times. And I go up to her and I go, is this right? And she goes, yeah, why? Is something wrong? And in my head, I'm like, oh no, it's just, the unit that I've been dreaming about going to.
That's sick, dude.
Yeah, I came back to that holding platoon. The staff sergeant who was in charge of me thought I was going to 9th Comm. He was like, you're going to 9th Comm, your life's going to suck. And I literally was like, little do you know, motherfucker, I'm going to a fucking cool place.
So when did you show up to Anglico, and how was that for you?
Dude, I showed up to Anglico on the July 96 of 2010. It was like the 2nd or 3rd of July, but it was weird. Like, so when I got to Anglico, the company was on post-deployment leave for the 2009, 2010 company tour in Afghanistan.
Okay.
So I got there, and it was like a skeleton crew. It was literally just like all the RBE guys that couldn't make it. So I checked in, and like they like, I stayed in like a random barracks room the first night, and I go to get in my alphas, and like they take me to S6, and dude, I'll never forget this, man. Like, they're like, all right, you got to report in to the comm chief, this guy, Master Sergeant Turner. He wasn't there that long, but I never forget this dude. So they're like, I'm outside of his office, and they're just like, all right, do you know how to report in and everything? I'm like, yeah. And I walk in, and I do the whole stand at attention shit. This dude literally goes up to me. I'm not making this up. He goes, do you know what we do here? And I'm like, no, Master Sergeant. He goes, we kill people. Like, that's literally what he said. And I was like, very well.
Okay.
Yeah, like, I couldn't freaking
right now? Or no?
Yeah, right? Yeah. No, he was like chill as fuck. Like, I think he was getting out or something. But like, I walk in there, and he's like, we fucking kill people here. I'm like, okay.
Where were they coming off of? Like, where was the unit at in Afghanistan?
So here's the thing, man. Like, when I'm gonna answer it kind of long, but it's funny.
That's fine.
When there was like I said, there was like a skeleton crew. So I go to field day and shit, and there was like no one running it. And then very slowly, like these like corporals and sergeants start trickling in, and they're just like, hey, motherfucker. And it started getting real quick. Little did I know, dude. So while they were in Afghanistan, Operation Mashtarak, the Marja push, kicked off. And Anglico had heavy involvement in that. So these dudes who were like my corporals were like seeing us. There was like a bunch of boots, and it was like blood in the water for sharks. Like, these dudes just got done. Like, they were in like heavy combat in Marja. Like, they were with like Charlie 1-6 and Bravo 1-6 on D-Day when they pushed.
Yeah.
So they like just got done doing the Marja clear, and they're like all hyped up from that. I mean, I swear to God, dude, my first week there, I was going to award ceremonies. They were handing out NAMs with V. Like, I don't want to say the word handing out. It was for like legit shit, but NAMs with V's and comms with V's. Like, these fucking dudes saw crazy shit. Like, my first corporal who was in charge of me, like, sprinted out of his Mat V to like set up comm, and he was just getting like raked by PK fire, and I was like, holy shit, dude. Like, So yeah, like right away we're in formation, and they're just like, what's the fucking frequency range on this radio? How do you call in a smoke mission? Like, just drilling us with knowledge. And it's like, if you didn't know it, it was like, run up to your room, get your E-tool, go back down. You're going to start scraping weeds out of the sidewalks. Like, those are the kind of dudes who were in charge of me. Like, they wanted to make sure you knew your shit.
So was this, at that time, so when you checked into S6, so for those that like aren't aware, a lot of times guys will check into S6, and that's the comm section, and they will hold there, and then eventually they'll go through like ABC, the Anglico Basic Course, or something, and then they get sent to a team. Or they may stay at S6 if they need radio operators with the headquarters and stuff like that. So, were you with the headquarters like S6 guys for any time, and then moved over to a team, or how was your transition?
Yeah, so like there was a bunch of us guys. We were kind of chilling there for like a week, and then they had they told us where we were gonna go. So they're like, I was gonna go to 1st Brigade Alpha, and they're like, you're going to 2nd Brigade Bravo, Chuck, and all that. So we knew we were going. So we basically went to our brigades, checked in, and then like I think a week later they kicked off the actual Anglico Basic Course. And I mean, I heard good things about the one they do now, but like the one that we had was like, I want to say like the old school system. Like it was like a legit thing. It was like if you were new to Anglico, you go to this course. So in this course, it was literally like as low as a PFC up to, we had a lieutenant commander in our class and all captains. So it was like, it didn't matter. You're going to go through this course. And that was your assigned place for like the next however long it was,
Well, at that time, they also had 3 brigades, right?
Yeah. So like the 3rd Brigade was like always designated as like the Mew Brigade. None of those guys really went to it because those were the dudes like you never saw. Like, how you chop to the Mew and you're on a different schedule? We never saw those dudes. So it was literally like just like the dudes, because we already knew the company was doing OEF again. So it was only like 1st and 2nd Brigade guys that were getting spun up. But I thought it was cool how it was like every rank was going through this. It didn't matter. Like you had to do it.
So when you left comm school and you got to Anglico, did you keep in touch with any of your buddies from comm school?
No. I mean,
no. I was gonna say, could you compare and contrast like what your life compared to like what you think theirs was?
I really don't give a fuck personally.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
All right, so you get to Anglico. Did you go to any schools when you first got there, or did you like range time? Like, what would you do for training wise? And how long were you there before you got put on a team?
So I mean, like I said, we were already like kind of assigned to teams, and then like I'd say ABC was a good school because like honestly, it was pretty legit. Like we did comm for the dudes who didn't know like the 08s, and then like that was my first introduction to fires, and it was like being shoved down my throat real quick, but like they stressed the importance of knowing it. And then like we were supposed to go out to OP Alpha and do a live artillery shoot, but it was like the weather was bad or something, and we never fired. We just did sims. Like I don't know. We like sat up there all day, and then they're like, "All right, get back in the truck. We're going home after." But we did get to call in live casts, which was cool. Pretty legit. So like one of the last things we did at ABC was we went back to OP Alpha. We got F-18s and Cobra Hueys, and my first time calling in a 9-line, I was a fucking PFC.
Oh, okay.
Obviously,
nice.
I was monitored by JTAC, but like that was a graded event, and then you had to do it again at night. They made you do night casts.
You're probably nervous as fuck,
dude. You have no idea. We had this salty ass gunny running it, and he was like, "All right, he's coming out of IP Ford. Where the fuck is that?" I look over the wrong shoulder. He's like, "No, motherfucker, it's over there." I'm like, dude, the fucking handset's like shaking. I did not know what the fuck I was doing, but. It was one of those things where once you do it, you're like, this is how it's supposed to look. That's how it works. Hearing people on the radio helped me a lot. So I was like, okay, like, I knew you get better at it as it goes. But yeah, I was like fucking pissing my pants.
Anglico is definitely a good environment for that. Like, you're always training toward, I mean, it's always like either doing live air or doing sims or something like that. And everyone's always involved. So it kind of doesn't matter what your job is, you're exposed to it no matter what, to close air support and call for fire and stuff like that. So what was your first team? Who were you with?
So I didn't get assigned to a firepower control team. I was with Alpha, the SALT headquarters. So it was like me, a senior FO, a junior FO. The comm chief of the SALT was like my direct NCO. Then there was the air officer, and then like the SALT lead was like the 2 other dudes also. There was like the SALT chief was there, but he had like gotten like word that he was gonna go do like he was gonna break away from us when we deploy and form like the Ficht Alpha, you know?
Yeah.
So he like was like doing his own thing. I'll get into that like when we talk about like the first deployment, but like, you know, so like literally I was just like chilling with this like motivated fucking dude who was this guy Sgt Dominguez. He was the SALT comm chief. Fucking motivated as fuck, like in like a drill instructor way. Like he made my life a living hell. Dude, I'm talking like when we would do gear layouts, this fucking dude would make me take a ruler and every piece of gear had to be like 1 foot exactly apart, and I had to measure every row had to be like exactly 2 feet. Then he would make me lay down in the prone and look down the gear and make sure it was covered in a line. Shitty stuff at the time, but
sounds like he needs help.
Dude. But I mean, it was shitty as fuck at the time, but like he was one of those dudes who like you hated. I mean, the stuff I just explained is a little monotonous, but like in the end, I was like, it made me a better like RO. Cause like I knew how to do comm shit that like a lot of dudes in my peer group didn't do. Like when we would like do crypto over the radio, like all the, you know, OTAR and OTAT, remember that shit? I knew how to do it, and like none of the other like Lance Corporal like PFC raid uppers knew how to do it. So he definitely showed me how to do my job. But it was like,
yeah, no, that's good, man. And how long was your guys' like workup before the company deployed again?
It was pretty long. Like, so this is probably, I got there in like July, and we were slated to go in May. This is July of 2010 is when I checked in. And our deployment was May of 11. So we had a long time. And, like, we were doing shit, like, a lot of local stuff around Pendleton. Like, you know, forming the teams and kind of, you know, hey, these are your guys. And then we would go, we did a lot of ranges and stuff like that. I remember we did this one range where they ordered, like, 36,000 rounds of 5.56. And I think we shot from, like, you know, for, like, basically 2 days straight. But it was cool. The weird thing is, like, they, you know, I kind of have a gripe about this to this day. I was a saw gunner at the time, and I think I fired that fucking thing once before I deployed on my first deployment. I don't know why.
Really?
Yes. Like, they never got saw ammo for us. Like, we always, literally, they're just like, fucking PFC Dimauro, what are you doing? I'm like, what do you want me to do? Like, what do you mean what do you want me to do? Get up to the firing line. I'm like, I have a saw. And they're like, oh, well, switch out with somebody and borrow their M4. And how does it look when a PFC goes up to everybody like, hey, can I borrow your rifle? Like that's the shit I was dealing with.
Did you ever try firing it with the magazine?
We did that, dude. One time we did.
It always jams though, from what I've seen.
Oh, it's unbelievable. We did a drill like the standard hammer pair, you know, burst drill with saws and mags, and they kept jamming and they were yelling at us, and I'm like, I don't know what you want me to do.
Yeah, like this is like an emergency situation kind of thing.
No shit.
When you use that, yeah.
Yeah, it was like it wasn't practical at all. But like, so we did a lot of ranges, and like our first big op was like we went out to NTC, and we didn't do like the big picture, whatever the hell it is, National Training Center thing. We literally went out there with SALT Alpha and Bravo went out there. So it's 1st Brigade training only. And we brought mortars from 2-4 with us. And we did like a week's worth of casts and mortar shoots. So that was like the first big op that I like went on.
Okay. But NTC's a cool spot, but I mean, it's like 29 Palms. But.
Yeah, pretty much. But it was cool because like that was my first time seeing like, 81 millimeter mortar go off. And they're like, all right, well, that's what a smoke screen looks like. It was mostly for the fix though, because like the other thing was like the JTACs were trying to get a lot of quals. So like me and like my sergeant and like the other FOs that were with me and the SALT, we basically played like FSCC, which that's what you do in the SALT. But, yeah. I think I called in a couple mortar missions and like they let me control like this like civilian helicopter and do like a fake LZ. And they show it was cool.
Oh yeah, I've seen those before, the contract helicopters that come out.
But it was cool training. Like they showed us how to build like a NATO Y and like prep an LZ. And I think at the time I was like a brand new Lance Corporal. So I mean they're trying to expose me to this stuff.
All right, so for those that that haven't listened to one of the previous podcasts or they're not military, I'm going to go through some of the acronyms that we just spewed out.
I'm an acronym guy, so this is going to be painful.
And it'd be Firepower Control Team is FICT. That's your 4 or 5-man team within the SALT, which is the Supporting Arms Liaison Team. And then you have the FSCC, which is the Fire Support Coordination Center. Those are the guys that, they're the ones that coordinate and approve fire missions and stuff like that to make sure that the JTAC is calling in a target that is actually a target, not friendlies. They just deconflict everything. LZ, landing zone, FO, forward observer. Let me think. Anything else? OP, observation post. It's a whole gamut of it. No, you're good, man. It's something people that are in the military you don't even think about. I was talking to a guy last night.
Yeah.
I went to this brewery and there's a Cobra guy there, and him and I started talking, and my buddy that I was with was not military, and his wife that runs the place was not military. So him and I were just talking, and they're like, we have no idea what you guys are even talking about.
Yeah, she's drinking her beer like, what the... Fuck, shut the fuck up.
Yeah, they're cool people, though. They own that spot, so... But anyway, so you get done with NTC, come back... Yeah. And it wasn't like a full-up NTC like with an Army unit or anything like that. That was just you guys.
It was literally like...
So it wasn't as bad as the ones that people are probably thinking about when they're thinking about going to NTC.
It wasn't. It was literally like we were just at NTC using it as a range. That's basically all it was.
Yeah. Yeah, we did that. I remember doing that a few times. It's a good spot.
Yeah.
So when you got back from that, at what point did you guys find out where you were going in Afghanistan?
So our next big thing we did was we went to Scotland for what's called Joint Warrior with the Brits. And we'll get into that, but while we were out there training is when it was like, hey, like my SALT Arrow, who kind of took over as like my team leader, he was like, this is where we're going to go. We knew we were going to Helmand. We just didn't know specifically where. So he actually named like the FOB. At this point they knew like locations, and I was like,
oh, okay.
So I found
which meant nothing to you because you're like, okay, I don't know.
Well, I mean, I'm all excited to go. So
yeah, but I'm saying like FOB locations, like you've never been to Afghanistan, so it'd be like speaking another language.
So there was a dude, this guy, my buddy Lynch. He had just done a tour with 5th ANGLICO and came to us. So they told us where we were going, and I ran up to him and was like, hey, have you ever heard of this spot? And he's like,
where was it?
It was a place called FOB Price. It was
FOB Price?
Yeah, it was a British and Danish at the time base right off of Highway 1 in the Upper Greshk Valley.
So you went to Afghanistan 2 times?
Yes.
Or 3? Okay,
twice.
So 2. Okay, so this one was not the Georgian Liaison Team deployment.
No, that was the second one.
Okay, so we'll get into that. But so you were with... So you go to Scotland. Did you go over there to work with 148 Battery?
Yes, we did. And I mean, again, as the SALT headquarters, we didn't do a whole lot of stuff, to be honest with you. It was more the fix pushed out, and these dudes were getting ran into the ground. I think it was like the 148 Battery, and it was some dudes from the Household Cavalry. Who I just remember the name. I think they're infantry dudes. But so they were out doing long range patrols with these Brit dudes and living the thick life, and I'm literally in a hostel in the town of it's a little, when you go to Joint Warrior, it's this little town called Durness. It's at the tip of Scotland. And,
oh yeah, I've heard.
Yeah, and that's where you set up, and the fix push out and do their training. So, but it was cool because we got the opportunity to call in naval guns at the little OP that they have there. So again, I actually called in a naval gunfire mission in Scotland.
On their little island right there, that's northernmost tip of Scotland.
Exactly. And I was pretty pumped because I was being watched by this dude Anderson. He was my senior FO, and I actually got a steel on steel hit. And he was like, "Oh man, that's pretty fucking cool." I'm like, "Yeah, I guess."
Yeah, hell yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, honestly, we didn't do a whole lot of training there as the SALT headquarters. I'll be 100% honest with you. The fix got ran into the ground. They were marching across this marshy shit of Scotland. Some of them almost got trench foot. That, no exaggeration. They were just patrolling and patrolling.
Were any of those guys that you trained with ones that you went on the deployment with?
No.
So who did you? Before that, you're getting ready to deploy. You went home for your pre-deployment leave. What'd your family, what was that like for your first deployment? Like, here we go.
I mean, I don't really remember it, to be honest with you. I think it was just like, it wasn't like anything crazy. It was just like, well, there's nothing we can do about it, so, whatever. I mean, in all honesty, I don't remember it being that dramatic, so I just left and came back. But
yeah,
it was cool because, like, we got back, and I remember it was a company deployment, but there was a lot of RBE, so remain behind element. I'll help you out with that one. So, but it was crazy because, like, a lot of the like staff NCOs and stuff that were like staying back, but were like tough on me in the beginning. They're going to other units and stuff. We left at night, and I checked my weapon out of the armory, and they're talking to me like a normal person because I'm leaving, and I'm like, I felt like I finally belonged. Like I wasn't like super boot because like, they're being nice to me and shit like that, and it was just it was kind of a cool. And then like I remember we got on the bus, and it was like they like lined each side of the street and like saluted us as we left, and that kind of hit it when I was like, oh, this is for real, like holy shit.
The game is over, time to go, or the practice is over. Now it's time to actually play the game.
It's real now. But I mean, I had no idea what the hell was going to happen, but I felt like I knew I was with good people, so
So did you fly through Kyrgyzstan and then into Afghanistan, or how'd your route go?
Yeah, we did the standard Kyrgyzstan route.
Did you go into Leatherneck or Dwyer?
We flew into Leatherneck, and again we had a summer tour, and oh my man, I'll never forget this. We landed on the C-17, and as soon as the door opened, it was like sticking your head in an oven, and I was like, holy shit.
That heat and the smell of the diesel and jet fuel, like you can.
It was.
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
And then, as a freaking boot lance corporal, I'm of course in the 18-wheeler truck that we had with all. They had a lot of gear like in a truck, so I'm in there unloading it. I thought I was gonna pass out. Like it was unbelievable. It was like 120 degrees.
So when did you get there?
Late May.
May of 2000.
Yeah, this is
2011. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, May of 2011. Okay, I was getting ready to head. I got there in June of 2011 to Marja with 3.6. So
okay.
When you got there in May, you got to Leatherneck, and then did you guys have to do any of the classes or like any of the training there? Like usually you do a range, a BZO range, and stuff like that.
Dude, we did remember, like, we talked about the saw, like, we did, like, a BZO fam fire with, like, so, we had iron sights on our saws the whole time we were training, and right before we punched out, we got the new SDO optics on them, so we had to, like, BZO those at Leatherneck, which was interesting, because, like, there was only a few people that knew how to do it, so I was like, okay, we figured that out. That was probably the first time I ever, like, I got my combat load, and I literally held a saw with, like, a 200-round drum on it, and I was like, I mean, I know some people listening are going to be like, how the fuck did you deploy? Not, but it's just, it just didn't happen. Like our training was so JTAC fires centric. Like, I don't know. We just like never really got to do much of it, But, so I held my saw with a 200-round drum on. I'm like, this fucking thing is really heavy. But,
wait, I got to carry this everywhere?
Yeah. So no, the JTACs had to go do their like certs for in country and like what the new stuff was.
Yeah, your
test,
your ROE test and stuff like that. Rules of engagement.
Fun fact, like our first full day in Leatherneck, so like the day after we landed, the base got hit by like 3 107 rockets, like in the perimeter. Nothing happened, but it was like
they were saying, "Hey, welcome."
No shit. It was like, all right, that's gonna happen. It was fucking crazy. And then they fired 107s, and then I don't know, it probably had nothing to do with each other. But then the HIMARS battery that was there just ripped out like a barrage of rockets out of Leatherneck. So I was like, okay, this is for real.
So after you got all your weapon and everything was good, or your ammo and everything like that, did you jump on helos and fly out to your fob, or or did you do like a vehicle convoy?
So I was a little butthurt because like in Scotland, originally I was supposed to go with my SALT chief and this corporal radio operator and the SALT lead. They got an ODA mission up in like northern Sangin, and I was supposed to go with them.
Probably,
but at the last second, I have no. I know they were up there working with like it was ODA, but they were like they had some. They did some work with 3rd Recon, who we flew in with. So,
Okay.
I don't know. But I got pulled from that, so I was like, man, fuck this. I got this cool mission. Now I'm going to be. But, it is what it is. So no, we jumped.
Yeah, go ahead.
So it ended up being the Arrow, who was like my team lead. Then my comm chief, who you can call the senior NCO, a corporal FO, a lance corporal FO, and then me. That was my team. So we jumped on a British Chinook and flew to Price, which is like a short flight. It's maybe like 10 minutes, not even.
Oh,
but it was,
really?
Yeah, it was really quick. It's so quick by flight, but like it was cool. Like I remember being in a British Chinook, and like they have 60s, like Vietnam M60s as the tail gunner, and I remember the dude just like controlling it, and we're flying over the green zone of like Goresh, and we touch down, and we meet up with our dudes who we're ripping out with, and they were from Second Anglico, yeah, because Fifth relieved us, so yeah, we were turning over to some Second Anglico.
Who'd you attach? So who were you actually attached with? What unit were you attached to?
So it was a British liaison and advisor team. So the way it would work was like we would attach to these guys and provide their fires, and they were basically training the ANA. So we were like a third party. So we were attached to these Brits, and they were kind of like an advisor team, kind of like what you did. So there was dudes from like different infantry units put together to make this British advisor team. We were augmenting them with fire support, and then they were training the Afghans, and we were assigned to 33215 Afghans. So 3rd Kandak, 3rd Brigade, 215th Corps. And yeah, so that was kind of our role. But,
okay, so you were doing a traditional Anglico mission then, attaching to a joint or allied force providing fire support.
Yeah, I mean, that was my life in it. I except for the MEU, which we'll get into, I never deployed with Americans.
So what part of Afghanistan was Fob Price in again?
So it's literally like...
What areas, like main areas, would it be around?
So it's basically considered the Upper Gereshk Valley.
Okay.
Yeah, it's like... It's like the green zone of like the Helmand River.
What was the activity like there?
So we got briefed by, it was kind of weird, like the advisory team that we were turning over with, we were on different schedules, so they had been there for a while. He lays out a map of the AO, and it's literally just like the whole Helmand River surrounded by green zone. Anywhere where we were was pretty quiet, because honestly, by vehicle, it was like maybe 30 minutes from Leatherneck, so you're still kind of in that brown area, just hitting the green. So we were kind of south, but anything up north of us was like, in British slang term, he said it was fucking nails, meaning like it's a shit show up there.
Oh, really?
So, yeah. And again, it was the summer, so they were like ready to fuck dudes up. So, yeah, our AO was pretty fucking kinetic. I'm not going to lie to you.
Do you want to talk about any like specific missions that you remember from that deployment, or?
Yeah, I do. So to be honest with you, being the SALT headquarters, we did a lot of mounted ops. Like our FIC teams pushed out to like the northern area of the green zone up all the way to the 611, just south of the Sangin area, if I'm correct.
Okay.
And those dudes were getting it. Like, I mean, we would get their briefs. They would email us essentially the briefs for the day, like all the rounds expended in their activity, and we would send that up to the brigade. Brigade would send it up to Leatherneck for like an end of day report. And we would always read it. These dudes were dropping and getting in all kinds of gunfights, like unbelievable. So we were like driving mounted patrols to their positions, and I, as the radio operator, I would find the FICT radio operator and give him crypto for the next couple weeks and make sure he was squared away, take care of his radios if he needed something fixed. We'd give him supplies. So it was getting a little boring, but I remember this one time. So my team leader, the Arrow, he comes into the hooch they were staying in one day. So we had like a little ops room in like our tent. We had like 2 tents, one that we would live in and one that we had like all of our radios and our COC set up in.
Yeah.
He no shit comes in. He goes, "All right, guys, like this is gonna sound cheesy as fuck," but he goes, "I got a search and destroy mission," and we're like, "What?" Apparently, down like a couple clicks from us, like right outside of Price was this ops box. It was called Ops Box Eel, and there was a SEAL team at Price, and they would go in there and just like rip shit every fucking night. Like it was not uncommon for me to walk out of my hooch and just see like an Apache like on a gun run. Like literally, I remember one time I was walking to Chow and I saw an A-10 in a nosedive just in a strafing run. But it was like literally, and I was like, all right. So there was this police checkpoint that kept taking accurate fire. Like they determined, they kind of got like a location on him, and they determined that he was like a Chechen dude, and he had a scoped weapon because he had 5 confirmed kills on Afghan police officers. It was like a mixture of Afghan police and ALP, which are the Afghan local police. Those are the dudes who don't wear uniforms, but they're on the payroll and they carry AKs.
Yeah.
And it was a mixture of those guys in this little shithole checkpoint right on the Helmand River, and they were just getting taken out. So they asked him, like, do you think you can go in with your team and get this fucking guy? And it was like, that's a legit ANGLICO mission. Like, go in and fix a problem with air. So we put together a plan. We loaded up. It was cool because we were getting driven into it at night. So they literally drove us up to the front gate of this checkpoint in MRAPs, and then they left us in the middle of the night. So we were getting inserted right to the X. So we took like a 240 and like loaded down with 7.62, like loaded down with all of our ANGLICO targeting gear because we didn't have to carry any of it. Yeah. So we brought like everything. So we get inserted into this checkpoint and we wait till the morning, and the guy starts engaging. Like he's snapping rounds like right off of the wall, and then he quits for a little bit. And like the Afghans, dude, they did like the thing you see in like World War II where they put the helmet on the stick and they try to like poke it up because they knew what we were there for. So they were like, we want this guy taken out. Yeah. So long story short, we couldn't find him. So we did what we did. We waited for the heat of the day to die down because they don't like to fight, during lunchtime.
Yeah.
So we're in like the inside just chilling, and all of a sudden he starts shooting again. And I remember me and my buddy, we had like a little firing slit. And at the same time, my JTAC's got an Apache, British Apache. He's talking to their call signs. He's got this guy in the orbit overhead, and he's like yelling at us. He's like, "Hey, Dimauro!" And my buddy Gilbert, the junior FO, is like, "Do you see him?" And like we have like the vector, and we lased it, and we gave him distance, and we pinged the compound because we actually saw the muzzle flash, and we got a good location on him, and he found it on his GRG. The next thing I know, dude, I turned to my right. My JTAC's running up next to me, holding a radio. He just goes like, "Ugly 5-4, cleared hot." And I look up, and I see the Apache, and then I see this orange like orb fly off of it, and it was and he fucking put a Hellfire right into it. And nice. And the crazy thing was the Apache was armed with, you're going to call me a nerd because I remember this. The Apache was armed with the November Hellfire, so the thermobaric one.
Oh, sick.
Dude, and it fucking popped the building. And we asked the Apache to do a BDA, and he swung in low, and he said he could see like 3 dudes in the courtyard on fire.
Well,
so, like, literally, but it was like the coolest thing ever because we went in, they're like, "We got a problem, we need you to go fix it," and we took this dude out, and then we left, and they never had the problem again.
Who were the other 2 dudes?
I don't know.
I mean, were they fighters too?
I mean, yeah, they were all, let's just say they were bad guys. I didn't
it was like a shitty spot.
Dude, I didn't ask any questions.
Who did the BDA afterwards? Don't you guys normally do like? I mean, we always had a team that went in and did the boots on the ground BDA and tried to recover the bodies if they could, if it was possible.
I don't think they did anything, honestly. Like, I mean, the guy swung in low, and like they could see like I think they had like he had a bolt gun on him, and they could like see it, but like the dude was laying there like on fire, and they're like, "Hey, you did it, you took him out." Crazy mission, but like, hey, we got him,
Hey, do it, man. They had to. At least now the Afghans don't have to worry about them anymore, I'm sure.
I know. No, they didn't. They didn't have any problems.
So anything else of note for that deployment?
Nothing crazy. I mean, like we like I said, we did a lot of mounted stuff. I remember we did this one patrol one time where we were by this patrol base, and we went on a daytime patrol with our British advisors. And this is actually a couple months before the mission I just told you about. And this is actually the first time I ever got shot at, but it was blue on blue. It was like we hunkered down by this compound, and my buddy, my JFO, is talking to the air. And then all of a sudden, like, the field like starts like exploding. like, and we're like, what the fuck is that? And we found out it was like a British, they call them warriors. It was a British APC who thought we were like enemy, and he cracked off a few rounds at us.
Oh, jeez.
Luckily they fell short, but this thing has like a 30 millimeter cannon on it. It was like weirdest fucking thing. It was a weird day because like later on that day we actually we were posted up on this like little 1 foot wall, and I was like watching this compound. All of a sudden the dude had like the Brits call them UGLs, but he had the grenade launcher on his AK.
Yeah.
He cracked off a grenade and it went over me, and it almost killed my JFO. It landed right like near him. And then all of a sudden the dude like bolted out of the compound. He was like running from like left to right, and me and I was a little nervous to engage because you always hear like you need to have positive ID, you need to make sure. But like we could see the guy, and the Brit next to me starts shooting, and I just like rip a burst with my saw, but I had a runaway gun.
Oh, on your first engagement?
Well, I fired a few rounds, and then I must have had like 50 or so left in the can, and then I let go of the trigger, and it's still firing. And,
man!
And the British next to me, dude's like, stop firing, and I'm like, I just let it go. I was like, fuck it. I mean, I was aiming it, but it fucking scared the shit out of me. And next thing I know, I cooked off the whole fuck. And it's just a funny thing. Like one of the first times I shot my weapon, it ran away.
That's fun. You don't really see that very often either. That's crazy.
It's shit you hear about like on a range where you're like, if you have a runaway gun, if it's like more than 100 rounds, break the link.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's never gonna happen. And sure as shit, the first time I actually pulled the trigger in combat, it ran away.
I think I've seen it happen like a couple times on the range, but never like it's not like so common. So that's pretty wild that it happened on your first time. Yeah, your first engagement there.
It was weird, and who the fuck knows if we got the guy because he's a couple hundred yards away. I don't, it's just
How was the living conditions there?
We were pretty good, honestly. Like the fix were in like typical shitholes, but dude, we had like a mess hall, like not like leatherneck, but like we had good food, and we had like it was like I'm not gonna lie to you, man. It was like a mini British leatherneck. We had showers every night and shit. Like,
oh,
it was
nice.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not gonna lie to you. We had it pretty freaking good, but we knew that like anytime we get like shipments of Cliff Bars and stuff from like higher, we would keep like none of it. We would give it to like all the teams. Be like, you guys need this way more than we do. Like,
so what kind of missions were your teams doing out there?
We were with an Afghan advisor team. They were with like, some of them were with like traditional British infantry, and they were just like accompanying them with, they actually teamed up with British JTACs,
Yeah.
That's the thing about the Brits is like they're first world, they're pretty established. They don't really 100% need our help, but if they can split the work, that's what they did. So they were out there with like British infantry dudes just having their thing.
So everybody in the company that was out there was working with Brits?
No, so that was 1st Brigade. 2nd Brigade was like more north in the Musa Kala and Nowzat area. They had the Georgian mission at the time, but I never really made contact with those dudes like the whole time until like we collapsed back. I didn't hear from those dudes. So I just knew. Go ahead. I just knew they were working with the Georgians, and that was it.
Yeah. Who else from our team? Because I kind of mentioned in the beginning, you and I were on the same team together at Salt Delta. Who else from our team was on that deployment?
Nobody.
Nobody was at Anglico yet?
No, I don't.
You were the grand old man of Anglico, dude. You were there forever.
Yeah, all my friends left me, and then I had to deal with you assholes.
So you came back from your first deployment, and what was that like? You're like, all right, I'm back. I'm no longer a boot. You probably had some boot drops there, and you were like, I remember when I was a boot drop. And
let me think. Like, we didn't really get boots right away, to be honest with you. That took a long time, actually.
Yeah.
No, I came back, and we had to do the typical rifle range, all that shit, and I didn't want to do it, so. Honestly, my mission was to go back to Afghanistan. I wanted to, and they kept telling me that like they were going to rearrange everything. So they told me I was going to stay with Alpha, who their next mission was to be a MEU, and I knew I didn't want to go on ship, so I was getting really scared of that. So after that, the cool thing we did was we went to Idaho for my first time in 2012. Time frame, and we went up to the range up there at what the hell is it called? Anyway, the Air Force Base up there.
It's
Mountain Home.
Mountain Home.
Yeah, we did Mountain Home. That was kind of... It was pretty cool. We worked with a couple of German JTACs on this. It's a really open area, and we just practiced calling in CAS a couple times. I'm going to be 100% honest with you. It was like the range was double booked. So the Rangers out of the Washington State, they booked the range for the night. So literally we had to go out there in the morning and go cold by 2:00 in the afternoon so they could come in and train. And we didn't sleep out there. We got a hotel room in Boise.
So it was nice.
So literally our day consisted of waking up in the hotel, driving out to this range, doing CAS for a couple hours, and then going back. And let's just say we partied a lot.
That's awesome, though, man.
Yeah.
Idaho is great. I stayed up there at Sawtooth National Forest on my road trip. I camped up there, but beautiful country. I didn't get into Boise, but I heard Boise's super cool too.
It's really cool. The people are so nice. I'd go back.
Yeah.
I mean, we did some cool training. We did this one thing. We brought 5.56 and a 203 smoke up there. So at this time, I cashed in my saw and I was a 203 gunner. And it was we actually went on a dismounted patrol where we had A-10s overhead. And we did a fake troops in contact, and me and this other dude were popping 203 smoke at tank hulks and running guns on them from the A-10s. Yeah. So that was pretty badass. But I mean, I was definitely getting more and more comfortable with JTACery and fires at this point.
Okay. So then you come back from Mountain Home, and then who'd you get attached to after that? Did you deploy with Delta?
Yeah, so the way it worked was I was with Alpha, and I'm fuck, I don't want to be here. Damn it. So I kept pushing the issue, and finally I was getting word something's going to happen. One day I get called into the 3 shop, and they're just it was me and there's 5 people total. So they point to me and 2 other guys, and they're all right, you're going to Delta. You deploy in 2 months. And the other 2 guys, you're going to Chuck. You deploy after them. And I'm just oh, yeah, that's cool. And I leave, and I high-five my buddy. I'm fuck yeah, dude, we're going back.
So how was your training with Delta then? Who you had Staff Sergeant Real, right, for the chief?
Yeah, so I go to it was so quick. I showed up to work at Alpha one day. They're hey, you don't work here anymore. It was so quick that the SALT lead didn't even he knew about it, but he was oh, you're gone now? I'm yeah, see ya. It was fat because I think if I remember correctly, in 2nd Brigade, a bunch of dudes either got in trouble or they couldn't make the deployment. So they needed dudes who were ready to go, wanted to go, and had time. Yeah. So it was me and my buddy Seth and my buddy Aaron Figueroa. Shout out to you. He's a pretty cool guy. No, yeah, Fig. Yeah. Oh, yeah, you know him?
Yeah.
Oh, word.
Yeah, he was the last eval I think I did before I got out.
Yeah, he's a great guy. Smart as fuck. So, yeah, so we're just we want to go back. We know what we're doing, So I showed up to 2nd Brigade, and no one was there. They're at a TCCC course, and I met Squirrel first time.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then later on, I met everybody else, and they didn't bullshit me. They're dude, you better know your job because you're a hot fill, and you need to know. I'm cool, yeah. And they were kind of sizing me up. They're did you do the company tour? And I was yes, I did. We all did. So we were we were pretty humble because these weren't our guys, but they were just all right, you probably know what you're doing. You've deployed before. Okay, we're all corporals at this.
And you got put in as a firepower control team radio operator or chief?
Yeah. So I got sent to FICT 8 as the comm chief. So it was this guy, shout out to him. He's a major now. I'll just call him Captain. Captain Lease was my team leader. Then it was me and Fig was my FO, and then CSON was our junior. It was kind of new to me, honestly, because that was the first time I'd ever been in charge of somebody. CSON was my junior, and I was okay, But I'll tell you what, man, Captain Lease, he was prior Navy enlisted, but this dude had done a tour with 311 during the Afghan surge, and he had done multiple Iraq tours. So he was obviously already officer. But I'll tell you what, man, I rag on officers a lot, but this is the kind of dude who like you wanted to work for. Like I used to joke like I would do anything for this guy. Like he was such a practical dude, and like he fucking took care of us.
There's dudes like that. There's some good ones that'll take care of you and like, you know, that aren't douchebags, and there's some that are just like, dude, you can't even be around them. You know, it's like
exactly
this guy just wants to go around power tripping on people and like, oh, cool, you're an officer, we get it, but you kind of suck at what you do.
Like the first day I met him, like I was trying to be professional. I was like, hey, I'm Corporal D. You know, I was getting his cell phone number so we can like start, you know, working. And he goes, hey, do you dip? And I'm like, yeah. He opens up his top drawer and goes, yeah, I always keep a log in here. If you ever want one, just grab a pinch. And I'm like, we're gonna get along just fine.
Like sick, nice.
Yeah. Like literally, he was the kind of guy who like, you know, if you fuck up, you're gonna hear about it. Like you need to know your job. But he was like, I'm gonna take care of you. You know?
So how did your workup for your second deployment differ from the workup for your first one?
So it was a lot of what did we do? We had
and again, this was just assault deployment, right? This wasn't the entire company.
Correct. Yeah. At this point, they stopped the company tours. So Delta was going first, and then I think Chuck was a couple months after us, and like I said, First Brigade was doing a Muse, so everything was like split up at this point. Which at this point, that was kind of all you needed. The whole company was not necessary. So we did we had a couple guys who did the 2011 tour with the Georgians who were kind of like in limbo with Second Brigade. They're waiting on orders. So whenever we would go do like mountain towns and stuff, they would tell us like how they're going to act, how they're going to be, and they would kind of talk us through that. We did a lot of like, you know, basic Marine Corps training, like I said, ranges and mounted stuff, but they would integrate like fake call for fire and Kazovac in it, like the normal ANGLICO training that we do. Then the big thing we did was that was the first time you talked about it on another episode. I went through the pig course with these dudes.
Oh, live tissue training?
Yeah. I skipped over it. This was actually my second time doing it. I did it in the company workup too as a boot.
Okay.
So I actually went through it twice, but it was very effective. Like there's a story about that, like once we deploy. But I remember going through the pig course with these guys. That was actually when I checked in this second. They were at the TCCC part. And then, like, the next day I joined him in class and, like, hey, welcome to Second Brigade. You're doing the pig course right now. But, so we did that. Then
what'd you think about that training?
Dude, it's the best training I've ever done.
Yeah.
So it's like we'll get into, like, some of the stories I have behind it. But, like, it shows you, like, what you need to do and, like, you know, all the medical acronyms, like, you know, March P and all that. Like, the process of, like, how you treat a casualty. So like March is like massive hemorrhaging, airway, circulation. Like they might have changed it, but it was just drilled into you over and over. Yeah. So when I would treat the pig, I would say it in my head, and I was like, I got this, you know. And
it's definitely a confidence builder.
100%. It was weird, you know. It was the dumbest things that helped me. It was like sensation, like a lot of blood smells like pennies. It's metallic smelling. Yeah. And then like when you're sticking your hands in the pig, you feel the warmth of blood. And like those sensations were like trigger points that like when I would treat, you know, somebody, I would remember that feeling and go back to the training. Like I was like, you know, it was something to help me remember it, you know, but it sounds weird, but that's like shit you don't think about. So it was
it's something you can't really replicate either with a robot, you know, at least not yet.
No, definitely not.
So you finished the pig training, and then what was after that?
We actually went to Germany to train with the actual Georgians. So at this point they split us up, and they're like, okay, my team was assigned to, we were supporting 32nd Georgian Infantry Battalion. My team got Charlie Company, and then like Fix 7 got like Alpha, and then headquarters got like, and then Staff Sergeant Real broke off his own FICT from the headquarters, and they got like Bravo Company. So we had a company to support. So
do you want to briefly?
Go ahead.
I was saying, do you want to briefly explain the Georgian Liaison Mission? Like who supports the Georgian Liaison Mission, and how does ANGLICO come into play to that? And then we'll kind of break down a little bit more in depth where everybody went.
So the GLT, the Georgian Liaison Team, is it's basically like you think of it like a Marine advisory team. So they have every MOS, they have motor T. They take volunteers from different units. Like we had motor T guys who got pulled from CLB-1, and they pull MOSs and they form this Georgian Liaison Team. And it's like, okay, you're TAD to this team. You're going to go on an Afghan deployment, and you're going to be the supply guy, the admin guy, the intel, every MOS. Anglico is kind of like the bastard children of that, because like we were part of them, but we didn't operate. It was like we operated like under their CO, but we were kind of like allowed to like almost do whatever we want, because like when we would get into country, we were the ones patrolling with the Georgians and like doing the trigger pulling. They were like the supply guys and like helping us out. So it's like they didn't really hate on us for it, but it was like we were like the bastard children of GLT.
Didn't you have any infantry advisors there that went out on missions also?
Actually, so they call them rotos. Like so ours was like rotation 8. Ours had no infantry advisors, which was
really,
yeah. The guys that replaced us, that was a big thing. Was like, oh, they got grunts like infantry officers, but we didn't have any, which was kind of weird.
So the Anglico guys were it, huh? That was the show.
Well, we made it work. Like, I'll get into that when we get to the deployment. We made it work. But, like, we went to Germany, and that was cool because we met the actual company that we were supporting. So, the way it worked was, like, we got to this army base, and we kind of, like, met everyone and, like, figured out what we were going to do. And then eventually, every team got, like, a Humvee, and they drive you out to this fake fob. So my team got like this, it was surrounded by HESCO barriers. It was like a fake Afghan fob with like huts and stuff. And the idea was we're playing like war games. Like we weren't allowed to leave. Like you're there for like the 2 weeks or whatever it was. And we would like go on patrols with the Georgians and like learn their tactics and learn how we fit in. But like I didn't see, Fix 7 or headquarters for the whole 2 weeks. We just talked by radio. It was like this giant war game. And it was ran by Marine staff who were assigned to that. So
yeah,
Colonel Sims, our RCO, he came from this scenario. It's called like the MRE, like the mission readiness exercise or something. But the guys driving like the scenario were like it was like a lieutenant and a bunch of infantry guys who were like, this was like their next assignment, and they would drive the scenario. So our GLT had no infantry advisors, but like the guys driving this scenario in Germany were like grunts. So, but the funny thing is they didn't focus on us because like they're like, hey, you're Marines, you probably know what you're doing. They would just like fuck with the Georgians all day, like artillery sims and like IEDs on patrols to see how they reacted, and we would call in like our fires to help them out.
How do you think that training like translated over to the actual deployment itself? Was it beneficial, or was that a check in the box?
It was beneficial in the sense that like it showed me how stressful it was going to be. The language barrier was unbelievable. All the Georgian riflemen, most of them speak Kartuli, which is their language. Very few of them, except for the officers, even speak English. They're very like still embedded with like the Soviet doctrine. Like they would take contact and they would literally like we called it the death blossom. They would shoot like 360 degrees. I mean, they're good dudes, but they're a very hodgepodge army. Like their riflemen carry like full auto M4s, and then their gunners have PKMs, and then they have RPGs in the patrol. So it's a very mismatched. I mean, like we got told the bigger picture. This is probably, I don't know, but like we got told like the reason they're in Afghanistan is to become part of NATO. That's what we were told.
They're like paying their dues,
I guess, but I mean, unfortunately, they paid with a lot of blood. But we'll talk about that later. But yeah, I mean, dude, literally, like we took an artillery barrage, like the Marine guys driving the scenario threw like an arty sim over, and we found like the point of origin of it. Yeah. And I never forget this. I saw the Georgian mortar or the artillery officer. He writes it down on a piece of paper, and he just runs out to the mortar pit and hands it to him. And I'm like, that's how it's going to be. Like they're just that's the level that they're at.
Yeah.
It's just how it is. Like again, like we learned the key players. Like we learned who the S2 officer was. Like that was the big thing, was learning. The company commander knew who we were, and we knew who he was. He knew what we could do. They loved us because they knew what the hell we were doing.
Yeah.
But okay. The officers were all right, but it was kind of hard dealing with like the grunts.
So you come back from Germany. How much time between that and then the actual deployment itself did you have?
I want to say a little less than a month. That's probably not accurate, but our deployment got pushed to the left a little bit. We were packed, and we knew we were getting close. We were supposed to leave like the beginning of October, maybe, and then my SALT leader, Captain Bates, he comes into the office and he goes, "Hey, we're leaving September 18th, which is actually my birthday."
There you go. Happy birthday.
Dude, we're in March Air Force Base. Captain Watt gives me a Hostess cupcake with a candle, and they're singing "Happy Birthday" to me. And then like, all right, get on the fucking plane. I'll never forget that. It was that was stupid.
Where did you guys? Where were you guys working out of on this deployment?
So my team got assigned to. It was considered Nowzad, but it was like it was considered Nowzad, but it was kind of close to Musakela. So like that little crotch area right there.
Yeah.
Now we get into we go to Leatherneck, and I couldn't believe some of the things that happened. So the Georgians wear multicam, and we got briefed that we were going to be able to wear that to blend in with them, but there was no plan to equip us with that stuff. So literally the GLT supply guys were dumpster diving in Leatherneck, and they found enough uniforms to supply everyone with maybe 2. So we got called into their tent one night. It was form a line and grab 2. Then after all of that, word came down that we were unauthorized to wear it. So we ended up just wearing green frogs to try to blend in. Kind of random, but it just goes to show you some of the logistical crap we were dealing. A lot of the unknowns.
And stupidity.
Yeah, so a lot of the unknowns. So going into Germany, our SALT motto became "Let's see what happens," because there was always not that the leadership didn't try to push for info, but there was a lot of questions that we didn't know what the hell was going to happen. So we're at Leatherneck, and we get our vehicles and everything. Our SALT got 3 or 4 MRAPs and a MAT V. We got the MAT V because I wanted it because I like that thing. And we were going to convoy out of Leatherneck. So we formed this giant, I don't know, let's just say 20 vehicle convoy. And we're getting ready, and we push out of Leatherneck, and we're driving down the road. And I knew we were going to a place called Patrol Base Faisal. It was literally not even a PB. When I got there wasn't even HESCOs. It was literally as if you took a bulldozer and just pushed it up. It was a berm. It was
oh, okay.
It was some straight up Vietnam shit. Unbelievable. But they had HESCOs on the top of it, on the apex of the bulldozer berm. But it was if you want to think of just the grid of the HESCO and the canvas.
Oh, it wasn't filled?
It wasn't even the square. It was if you cut a wall off the square. And it was almost to be it was more like a sniper screen.
So they put up a curtain.
It was, yeah. I mean, it was tall. It was 15 feet tall. You weren't gonna be behind it, but there was no actual if we took IDF. I mean, we had a bunker, but it was they would have fucked a lot of dudes. We actually never took any, but they would have fucked a lot of dudes up. It was no running water. Dude, 100% different from my first deployment.
I was going to say, way different living conditions than you had before.
That's what I wanted, though. But I was all right, this is it. So we Captain Lease flew out a couple days prior. There was an LZ just outside of the base. It was a flat dirt patch. And we convoyed in. It was me, CSON, and Fig. Literally, it was a line of vehicles. And it was all right, this is your turn. So my team pulled in. And attached to us, we had one Georgian Liaison Team vehicle. So there was a sergeant who was a motor T guy, a lance corporal who was a motor T guy, a fucking data dude. Who was it? It was a data guy and another comm marine. They were cool dudes. We actually the motor T dudes were in our tent in Germany, so we already knew them. So when we went to Leatherneck, we're hey, what's up, man? We're gonna be hanging out together. Cool guys. So it was there was 9 Americans when we got our battle drill down. There was 9 Americans total at this base, supporting a company of GOs.
Okay.
So that was how it worked.
How was that initial integration? When you got to the FOB?
It was cool because it was the same dudes we saw, so we knew them, but I forgot what happened, but like they didn't want to like patrol for like the first month, literally. Yeah. I don't know why. It was something with like regiment or something, but like actually taking it a step back, like to give you another example of like this deployment, like before we left Pendleton, like the 6th shop let us like literally do like, they literally let us raid it and like take gear that we wanted. So we like loaded up on like handsets and like spare comm gear. In Leatherneck, we were at, Anglico has like their own compound. We were scrounging up like gear we thought we needed. So like me as a comm guy, I was like hoarding like cables and like connectors and shit. Because like I was like, we had no turnover. Literally, we pulled in, I got out of the truck, Captain Lease was there was no Americans, and I'm like, what's up? And he goes, no, we're gonna have to set everything up. There was no COC set up, there was nothing.
So was there not a team there before you?
There was, but like they already left. Like I think there was like a Marine staff sergeant, but like he had already left. So it was like Captain Lease, and he's like, all right, welcome to Faisal. And then like the next day I got up and we had to set up the whole COC for us to work in. Like not the actual hut, but like it was like a desk. And I had to set up all the radios and all the targeting gear. I mean, by the end of the deployment, we had a pretty dope setup, but we had to do everything from the beginning, you know?
Well, at least you could build it how you want it then.
It was cool. I mean, we had like the video scout set up on like a flat screen TV, like with a HDMI cable. So we didn't have to look at this little screen. We would like literally turn the screen away. And we had like Cobra feeds on like this big ass HDMI. Faisal, for as small as it was, we actually did have a PGSS balloon there. So that was pretty cool. So we like made liaison with the contractors that were there, and like we gave them like our 153, unencrypted radio, so we can like talk in between the COC and like where they were. So for the first month, it was kind of just us establishing ourselves, getting all the radios up, and we got air tasked to us, but it was like mostly route security stuff. But then like a month in is when we started going on patrols with these guys. So.
How was the area around the PB? Was it pretty active, or like a decent area?
It was kind of sketchy, dude. Like we would go on patrol. It was so fucking creepy. Like we would find like drawings in the sand of like our PB, like they were like laying it out, and it was just so creepy, and like it was kind of desolate. But then you would see people. It was very brown zone-ish. So my first time, I was straight up green zone stuff. This is like the deserts of like Nowzad, There's villages around us. So our patrol base was right on Route Red, which takes you up to like Musa Kela. And basically what we were doing was patrolling the area and guarding Route Red. So the Georgians would set up MRAPs. They called them pickets. They would set up an MRAP in like along the side of the road, and then like a couple clicks down there'd be another one just to like establish security. Like that was their main goal in life. And then we would do like dismount patrols with them throughout the area, like a lot of satellite patrolling, just checking the area.
Okay. Do you have any so when you first got there and then you started doing the patrolling and stuff like that, obviously it's way different than what you were doing previously. Were you a lot happier? You're like, this is way better than what I was doing, or were you like, damn, I kind of miss the showering? And
well, I mean, Anglico, what I like about it is like it's not like battalion where it's like you're radio operator number 22. You're just a body. You're on a four-man team, and if you get hit, you're 25% down, and you need to like know your shit, and your opinion is matters. What I liked about it was like I got to use my imagination and be creative, and how I set up the COC, and like you had to be adaptive, and like you had to like make this work. It wasn't oh, like corporal don't know. It was like, no, bitch, you better fucking be assertive and like figure shit out. I liked that. But I mean, I forgot about this. Back to what you were saying, the area. Like to give you an idea, like it wasn't like World War III, but like the day we did TOA, the transfer of authority, we're like, hey, First Anglico, you're it. Staff Sergeant Real dropped that day.
What do you mean?
He got a gun run the day he turned over.
Oh, he dropped. Oh, yeah. Okay. No way.
He literally was like, all right, Anglico Delta, you have the mission as of now. And then later on that day, he fucking got a strafing run from a Harrier.
Got his first control. Nice.
Yeah, like the day we took over. So I was like, all right.
Did the team end up getting a lot of controls while they were out there?
So honestly, like my team, we didn't drop once, but every other team got one. I know like Staff Sergeant Real dropped a lot, and then like Captain Watt got a couple Hellfire kills. We were mostly using skids and Harvest Hawk, so it was a lot. It was a lot of missiles and shit. It was so weird. Like so to give you an idea, like we were at Faisal, which was, and then like 10 kilometers north of us on Route Red was a place called Aredvi, which was where Staff Sergeant Real was with Ficht Delta, and then 10 kilometers north of that was Shirgazi, which is where 7 and headquarters were. And it was like completely different neighborhoods. Like we're only 10 clicks away from Staff Sergeant Real's team. We never got IDF'd. They got IDF'd like a motherfucker.
Oh, really?
It was weird. It was like you go down the block and it changes, and then you go up. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Finish.
And then you go up to where like Captain Watt was, and that's getting closer to Musakela and kind of green area, so they're getting a lot more SAF and fuck. It was so weird. Like where we were, it was a lot of like we call them DMs, so designated marksmen. Like we had dudes taking like accurate shots at us. Up where like Captain Watt was, I heard they were getting like a lot of like machine gun type shit. We never really rolled with like our ECMs on our vehicle hot because like the only real threat was like pressure plates, because like the RC threat was like non-existent. So we're like, okay, but that's just to give you an idea of like the threat environment we had.
Yeah, pressure plate and like pull string were the big ones that we saw.
Yeah, so it was a lot of that shit.
Yeah.
We would go out. We found a couple. I remember we had like EOD with us once, and we blew it up. Nothing. But like, again, it was really a pain in the ass. Like, kind of patrolling with the Georgians, because like they had like a couple platoons, and like they would send out like as many as 3 patrols a day. And at first, to show good faith, we would like go on every single patrol, everyone. Yeah. But then after a while, it was like, all right, well, this one's literally like doing a lap around the base. We're not going on that one. Anything to like the east of us was like nothing. So if they were going out that way, we wouldn't go. If we were going like to a hot area, we would be like, yeah, we'll go on that one,
Yeah, that's cool. So, you could like pick and choose.
We told them that because there was only a couple of us, but like it was cool because like it wasn't for my team. It wasn't only Anglico that was patrolling. We ended up like showing the Motor T guys and all them how to use radios and shit. So a couple months in, we ended up having them carrying radios and shit, which was awesome. And they took it and they ran with it. Like I remember this dude, Sergeant White, he was our Motor T guy I was telling you about. We would do a thing called like, we had mounted and dismounted patrols, but we would do a thing called a hybrid patrol where we would drive out in the vehicle and I would dismount and they would kind of shadow us, like get on the high ground and cover us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we were a little far away or like in a low ground where like my radio wouldn't work. So like I made him like a little holder in the vehicle to like hold like, admin shit. And what he would do while he was driving was he would take like a piece of laminated paper and like tape it to his leg. So as I was talking to him, he would write it down and like relay it back to the COC, which was awesome to see them like running with it because they didn't want to just sit in the rear. And Captain Lease told him straight up. He was like, if you want to go on patrol with my guys, you need to learn this, this, and that. So we spun them up on medical shit, radios, and by the end, they were like right there with us. I didn't expect them to control the air, but it was cool like having other dudes that wanted to learn.
Do you want to talk about any of like your more memorable patrols from that deployment?
Trying to think of one. Well, I can talk about like there was one. It was like the really bad one. So this is like pretty far into the deployment. It was like February of 2013. And at this point, we're pretty fed up with the GOs. Like, they would fire in all directions whenever we would take contact. And, like, we were so pissed off at them. And everybody was. The GLT staff was. And we would do, like, vehicle checkpoints. And they were pulling women out of the vehicles. And I was like, you guys can't do that. You're pissing everyone off.
Yeah.
So we were all kind of writing them off at this point. Maybe getting complacent. I don't know. But so we were out going on a mounted patrol one day. And we were already lined up at the gate. We already radioed. We're departing friendly lines, everything. It was me, Captain Lease. At this couple months into the deployment, we got a corpsman. This guy, HM2 Hugo. Shout out to you. He's an awesome dude. So we had a corpsman with us. So it was me, Captain Lease, one of our comm dudes in the turret. I was in the back of the MAT-V and our corpsman. So we're about to leave, and one of the Georgian translators runs up to us and he goes, "We've had an explosion in a U.S. truck." And we're like, "You're full of shit, go away." And he's like, "No, seriously." I don't know how we found out. We like flipped the radio on or something, but we heard a bunch of shit going on, and we're like, "Oh fuck, we gotta go." So it happened at an intersection of, it was Route Red and a little road that split off. It's called Route Tiffany, and it happened like right there. What ended up happening was they were running a supply convoy. I don't know if they were going to our position, but it was a truck of like MRAPs, and they found a radio in the middle of the road. It was actually a Prick 152, so one of the green radios we use.
Yeah.
They stopped the vehicle, and this guy, he was like the Motor T. He was either the Motor T chief or like the S4 Alpha of GLT, Staff Sergeant Davis. I didn't know him that well, but I knew who he was. He actually got out of the truck, picked it up, brought it back in the truck, and, you know, you're told never to pick shit up, you know, but I think it was, he thought, because the Georgians carry unencrypted 152, so we think he thought it was one of theirs, and they dropped it. We don't really know, but so he brought it in the truck, and it was a fucking booby trap. They hollowed it out, and they actually put Semtex in it, so plastic explosive, and he had it by his knee. He actually flipped the knob to turn it on, and it went off right in his hand, and it fucking so it went off in the truck, in a MAT V. Like, imagine, it's like a fucking hand grenade going off.
And he's the only one in it?
No, it was full of dudes.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so that whole clusterfuck happened. As this is happening, we're like, it's maybe a 5-minute drive. Like, we were in a perfect situation at the perfect time, like in our vehicles, jocked up, ready to go, and we're like hauling ass. And I'm looking through the windshield, and for some reason they popped a smoke grenade. Nothing against these dudes, but like they didn't really know what they were doing. Panic might have set in. It was like supply guys and all that. So we heard all the chat. We heard squirrel, because what ended up happening was Staff Sergeant Rio got in like too many pissing contests with the Georgians. They just couldn't. They have a hierarchy of their army. They couldn't take orders from an enlisted guy.
Yeah, that's like that a lot.
And it was becoming an issue. So they switched him out with Captain Crispin. So we're hearing him work. He actually had an aircraft overhead, and he was working it. And I grabbed like a CLS bag from behind me, and I go, "All right, Doc, as soon as the vehicle stops, we're going to go to work." And he's like, "Yeah, dude, I got you. Like, this does not sound good." We get out of the truck, and there's a Marine there just fucking covered in blood, because he opened the door. He was from another truck, but he opened the door and grabbed Staff Sergeant Davis out of the truck. And he's laying there on the ground, and I didn't really know what was going on. Like, I ran by him on the ground because I saw another dude. I ran around the truck, and I saw the driver was leaning up against the tire. I think he might have like looked and turned, but it went off, and like his face was like kind of burned, but not bad, and like some blood was coming out of his mouth. It was a Marine Lance Corporal. So I started like patching him up, like, you know, wrapping him up. I was maybe working on him for like a minute when our corpsman came over, and he took over. He put eye patches over him because we didn't know if he had any frag in his eyes. And at this point, I was always like, don't just sit there. Like, what could you be doing? So I was like, "Hey, Doc, I'll be your scribe. Like, I'll write down like his symptoms." And he's like, "All right, he has this. And I was like, got you. And I handed him the piece of paper. And then I was like, what else needs to be done? He needs a stretcher. Now, fun fact about this, like, a couple months prior, like literally when I had downtime at the PB, I would always go out to our truck and like sit in it and be like, what can I do to make this better? So I would take like, you know, air like frequencies and like laminate them and like tape them on the ceiling of the truck so you knew every freak, aircraft call signs, like everything to make things faster. So I was like, you know what? I wonder if I can take one of the stretchers and like open it and like clip it to the side of the truck. Well, in doing that, this sounds kind of dumb, but like it was one of those collapsible stretchers, you know, like you had to put your foot on it and like push it. I couldn't get it open. I don't know if it was rusty or what, but I had to call the other Motor T Marine, this guy Jackman, fucking pretty big dude. He put his foot on it. It took him all of his force to open it. And I was like, well, fuck, good thing I'm doing this, because if I had ever had to do that in a combat situation, it would be shitty. Thank God I did that. You know, because I wouldn't have been able to open the damn thing. Yeah. So I go into the back of the truck and I unclip it and I give him the stretcher. While we're working on the driver, Sergeant White, the guy driving the truck, he went into the damaged Mat V and started like sanitizing it, so taking the gun out and getting all the ammo out of it. And both doors were open, and he looks through the open door and sees a pair of legs. He goes around, and it's the turret gunner, and I think he said he had like arterial bleeding from both of his legs.
Oh man!
And he said it was like a fucking movie. He tourniqueted him, and he was like holding his hand, and like this is like the importance of like when you're doing TCCC, they tell you get a casualty collection point so you know who's who.
Yeah,
it's a good debrief point right there, because like we were fine. Like, you know, I'm working on one guy. This dude was over here laying fucked up, and we didn't even know he was there for like a good minute. He ended up we got him stabilized, but it was like, hey man. So we
yeah, that's rough, dude.
Yeah, it was like putting like the Batman symbol up, because we had Tricky, Pedro, and Dustoff come in. So 3 platforms, one after the other. So literally like we got like the driver out, and there was the driver, the gunner, there was a Georgian riding in the vehicle. The Georgians were patching him up. So on the first helicopter, we loaded 2 U.S. and 1 Georgian guy. And I think it was Pedro. He took off the 60s. I think those are the PJs.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they took off, and then we ran back. And at that point, I hadn't seen Captain Lease, and I see Staff Sergeant Davis laying there. And I was like, all right, hey, sir. Dude, my adrenaline's going a million miles a second. And I'm like, all right, we got 3 guys out. And I was like, what about him? I point to him, and he just looks at me, and he goes, he's dead. And I'm like, okay, like, nothing I can do. Like, okay, so me and Sergeant White put Staff Sergeant Davis on a stretcher, and that was the most fucked up thing I've ever seen in my life, dude. Like, waiting for this bird to come in, seeing a Marine laying there, like, it was horrible. Like, his left arm, like, just below the elbow was gone. His fucking bones sticking out. He had a hole in his left leg the size of a basketball. I can fucking see his femur. And his face is just like, he was dead, but his face was just all exploded. And we didn't have time to cover him up or put him in a body bag. And I'll never forget this. Like, the next 60 landed, and as we're running up to the bird, me and my buddy holding this dead Marine, the crew chief chucks out one of the stretchers, and he gets out to help us. And I'll never forget it. The crew chief looks at the guy and looks at me just like, holy fuck. And I just kind of looked at him like, yeah, it's a pretty bad day. You know,
yeah.
We got him out of there. It was so fun. It was bad because like I remember one of the Marines, the motor T guy, started like freaking out. He was like, no, he's not dead. He's not dead. And I was like, yeah, he's not here anymore, dude. You need to chill. So we had to put him in one of the trucks, take his weapon away from him because he was starting to freak the fuck out. The bad thing was this intersection where it happened was a very bad area. Like, we used to set up vehicle checkpoints there, and it was like a stopwatch. Like, every time you stopped and set up a checkpoint, like 45 minutes later, you're going to start taking contact. So at this point, an EOD MRAP pulls up from a Red V, and it had Sanchez in it. He was in the turret because EOD never rolled out with a gunner because like they had like all this equipment and shit in their truck, so he would just put his saw up there. Yeah. And so I jump in. They start sanitizing the vehicle and doing their post-blast analysis. And I go inside of their truck, and I'm talking to Sanchez, and I'm talking to Squirrel at this point. I'm relaying all the kill numbers to him, and I get out of the truck, and then all of a sudden we start hearing like rounds like zip by our heads, like really fucking close. Yeah. And we see the guy because one of the EUD guys saw him, and he had a 203, and he popped a smoke round at him, and we were waiting for the guy to come back out, and we did, and I sighted in on him. But then this fucking dude, this EOD guy, puts his barrel right next to my head and rips off like 10 rounds from his M4. He like almost blew up my eardrums. I was like, all right, that was not good.
Thanks, dude.
So I was like, we just lost a Marine. We had like 3 guys get wounded. We're taking contact. So we actually ended up having to call tanks from Shergazi because they were just like firing at us, and we were trying to rig this vehicle for tow, trying to get all this sensitive equipment out of it. You know, I got Staff Sergeant Davis's busted ass bloody M4 in my hand. We took the radios out of the vehicle, and I was scared to like turn them off. Like I knew it wasn't rigged, but because I just heard what happened, and I was like nervous. I didn't want to turn them off, so I just like put them in my truck and collected them. So the tanks didn't end up firing, but dude, you want to talk about like an MCT when you're like, I'm up, they see me, I'm down. Like, you'll never use that. We used that. Yeah. Like we ended up collapsing into our Mat V, and the tanks pulled up, and they're just like, hey, we need to like tell them where to go. We need to orient them. Like, I don't know why we just didn't call him on the radio, but Captain Lease gets out of the truck and runs over to the tank, and I'm like, well, if he's going, I'm going. So we literally bounded over to the tanks, climbed on top of it, like Vietnam shit. Like, we knocked on the hatch, and we're like, it's fucking that building right there, right there, right there. And he just like, I think like him turning his turret towards it like scared the guy. He never came out. The tanks never fired. But
you should have used the radio on the back of the tank.
I know. I've always wanted to use one of those things.
The grunt phone.
I don't know. It was like so heat of the moment. I was like, dude, you got to remember the state of mind we were in. We were so fucked up.
Yeah.
Like,
I just imagine, dude.
I just seen this guy with like mangled to shit, and it just hurt because it was an American, you know.
Yeah.
So we get the vehicle. They tow it out of there, and we end up getting back inside of our truck. And Captain Lease was so legit about it. Like he was like, hey, like, do we have any food in here? Like, you guys should probably eat something and just calm down. And we're waiting for it to end. And then to add insult to injury, a fucking sandstorm rolls in.
Oh, fuck, dude.
Yeah. So
it was like the day of days.
Yeah, it was the shittiest day ever. So we had to wait for like an hour for the sandstorm to leave. And then we ended up driving back to Faisal. And the Marines who didn't go on patrol, like CSUN and all them, like they didn't really know what happened. 100%. So we got out, and they're just like, hey, what's up, guys? Like, acting all goofy, and I just kind of like shook my head and like walked by them. And Captain Lease was like, all right, well, Staff Sergeant Davis was killed, and 3 guys got hurt. You know, it's not a good day. So he was so cool about it, though. Like, he was like, dude, you guys are off tomorrow. We're not going to patrol. I don't want anyone to be alone tonight. So I was like cleaning my rifle, and somebody came up to me, and they're like, yo, White is outside, and he doesn't look good. So I go out there, and he's like smoking a cigarette. And he's like, I'm just trying to process what I just saw. And I ended up having one with him, just talking to him about it. But then we went into like Captain Lease's like little private area. Like, you know, he had like a cot, and like he had like a sliding like piece of plywood he can shut. We went in there, me and him, and he had a flask, and we like took a shot for like, you know, to take the edge off. I didn't say that out loud, but yeah, we had some alcohol.
Yeah, so I remember this was in 2012?
13 February.
Okay, so I was doing the last of my training for my advisor team at that time. Yeah. And we actually got briefed on that like right after it happened. And they were like, because you know when you're doing your pre-deployment workup, you go through like the EOD, or not the EOD, the IED lanes and the training and stuff. Yeah, we went to that, and they were like, hey, this just happened. Like, there was a radio, don't pick this stuff up. This, you know. So I remember...
I don't think anything like... I know, like, I think maybe in, like, Iraq, something like that happened. But I don't think that ever totally happened like that, where a dude, like, no shit, picked up a booby trap, and it killed him. Like, it just didn't really happen.
I remember when I was in Iraq, somebody was... there was a story going around, and... the Iraqis, or the insurgents, whoever, had taken a iPod and hollowed it out and filled it with C4.
Yeah, man.
And then, because this is back when iPods were like bigger, you know?
Yeah.
And then they left it on the road. They knew that would get patrolled. And one of the Americans picked it up and took it back to the base. And when they went to plug it in, it blew up.
Okay.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's not an unheard of thing. It's just, that is super random and like, obviously unfortunate. Someone else was telling me about that incident, and they told me that one of the Georgians had lost a radio that day, and he thought he had picked it up, thinking that was the radio that the Georgians had reported as missing.
Yeah,
and that's kind of how it went, and that's, you know, so yeah, man. I mean, that's
that, and there was. I actually forgot another one, like the picket vehicles I was telling you about.
Yeah.
This is before this incident happened. Early on, and like maybe 3 months into the deployment, we were like, me and White were like working on our truck, and Fig comes out and goes, guys, get your shit on. Like, one of the patrol picket vehicles got attacked. And we thought we were going to have to go like help them. But what ended up happening was this fucking sedan, like the gunner was down, and they were inside like eating MREs, like nobody on guard duty. So the dude actually got out. One guy got out and started just ripping into the truck with like his AK. He was close. Another guy actually got on top of the truck and they have PKMs for main guns. He took the PKM off the turret, stole it, and then chucked a grenade in the truck.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Jeez.
By the time we heard about it, they actually towed the MRAP back to Faisal, and we had to deal with the wounded. So there was one killed. We think the vehicle commander opened the door to try to return fire, and he got double tapped in the chest. That was the first time I'd ever seen anybody shot before. Funny thing, I was in the COC and the Georgians were going crazy. We were trying to medevac them, and they're like, all right, the bird's on its way. So I ran out to the main gate to see what I could do, and CSON actually put a chest seal on the guy and stabilized him. And, of course, me as his NCO, this is his first time, in an actual thing. I was like, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you check this? And he's like, yep. And I gave him a once over, and I was like, no, you're good, man. Good job. I was pretty proud of him at that point. He actually saved this dude.
That's
so there
awesome.
there was one dude dead, and we medevaced one wounded. I don't know what ended up happening to him. But then they towed the vehicle back to Faisal, and we were looking at it, and we called an EOD to examine it. And they determined that it was probably an RKG-33 because the way the armor was banana peeled, it was from the inside out. So they think the slug cooked off and went from the inside out. It was fucking insane. They never got the PKM back either. But it was what the fuck were you doing? You had a gunner down and you weren't on guard. Look what happened to you.
Yeah, exactly. That's a perfect example of something like that you would, when you're doing the training and stuff, you're like, that would never happen.
Yeah. Then after that they started doubling up the MRAP, so it was 2 per picket vehicle. And then it happened again where there's actually a YouTube video of this. If you type in Georgian MRAPs attack, there's PGSS footage. They're tracking these 2 white sedans, and all of a sudden they just turn left hard and they start racing towards these 2 MRAPs, but they were alert, and 8 dudes just jump out of the trucks and they start exchanging fire, and I think they killed 2 of the insurgents, and the MRAPs just drove away. But it happened a second time. The second time they were alert, but it just shows you it was one of those things where our AO would be kind of quiet because we had the winter tour, and then some weird shit like that would happen.
Yeah. Huh. So is there anything else you want to talk about with that deployment?
One last thing, this wasn't a thing we were particularly involved in, but we ended up getting tasked with this mission called Operation Dynamic Partner, which was, there was a MSOT team, couple clicks at it was called a village stabilization position. It was a little rinky-dink, not even a PB, a checkpoint. It was run by a MARSOC team. And I guess what happened was they got encircled, and the only way they can get resupplied was by air. Funny story. We had all the aircraft call signs on a piece of paper in our COC, and I remember the C-130 or whatever did aerial resupply, their call sign was.
Oh, really?
And I was like, that is the dumbest fucking call sign ever, because we worked with so many aircraft. We worked with the Tornadoes and Defy and all those dudes. And I was like, all right, I heard that call sign. It was a game I played. I was like, I want to hear that call sign and that call sign. And I was like, I will go through this deployment.
You're playing call sign bingo.
Dude, I was like, I'm going to go through this deployment and hear that call sign. And then Captain Lisa's like, you're never going to fucking hear that. And sure enough, we got tasked with this mission, and we heard on the radio. I was like, yes, motherfucker!
That's the little stuff on the deployment, that gets you through it.
Because it's a dumbass call sign, but it was so funny. But what ended up happening was, so Captain Lease got called back to Leatherneck, and it was a regimental mission. RCT-7 took over the planning for this mission. What we had to do was, it was I forgot what battalion it was. I think it was either 1-9 or 3-9. They got tasked with going into the position that the MARSOC team was in, and basically holding everyone back while they evac'd. They got the dirty work of it. The Georgian mission was, we led the convoy in, so we went down Route Red, and we turned left towards the Musikela Wadi, I think, and we were going to set up a blocking position while 1-9 went in and set up security, and then they would drive past us on the way out, and we would be tail end. So we were covering their egress route. So it was a pretty big mission. So it was me, Captain Lease, CSON, and White got tasked with it, and we left the rest of the guys at the PB. But it was a lot, dude, because we got told when day 1 kicks off, you're going to be the only JTACs out there for like a day. And since it was like a JSOC mission, he got like stacked with like, I had to request extra radios. So like in the vehicle, I had the 152s on amplifiers. I had a 117 on amplifier. And then underneath that, I had 2 more 117s. So our vehicle was monitoring 5. Dude, I was like duct taping antennas to the side of my truck. And so we're monitoring like VHF, UHF comms, and SATCOM. Thank God I did, because when we checked in, we had like Skids, Harriers, and then like, I never forget, it was like and which were UAVs.
Yeah.
So he was fucking stacking dudes, like unbelievable. He would check a dude in and give him routing, and then like another dude, and he had like literally 2 headsets going. I was like, holy shit. So, you know, and then
time to earn your pay, you know?
Yeah, so what happened was they had to drive in with all this construction equipment. We stayed in our position. They drove past us a ways. They had to make like a fob. So they had to bulldoze a berm, then set up a staging area, and then 1-9 went into this green area and set up a perimeter so that MARSOC team can clear and get out. We couldn't like see any of this directly because it was a couple clicks away and like kind of down in the wadi. Mm-hmm. But since it was again, it was like JSOC. I'll never forget this, dude. We had the MARSOC radio frequencies, and we were listening to the JTAC. His call sign was like something. This fucking guy would like. I remember. I think it was. We had either the skid platform. That was their call sign. The dude would check in, and he's like, "Hey, this is 2-3 check in." He's like, "Yeah, Roger, stand by for game plan." Like he was just like, boom, 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 because like literally, like. To get them out of there, they were surrounded by Taliban. Like they wanted to fucking overrun the place. So they literally, it was so bad. We found out that like, so we actually had to keep our vehicle running the whole time. The whole thing took 10 days. We had our vehicle running the whole time because we had to keep the radios on. Every 3 days, we would go to like the little cleared secure area that they set up, the staging area, and we would get refueled by the bulk fuel guys. And we actually ran into Colonel Renforth, who was the RCT-7 CO, and we're like, "Hey, how's it going? Like, how's it progressing?" He goes, "Day 2, the Grunts Winchester their frag grenades. We had to get a new supply in."
Damn.
Like, literally, yeah. Like their snipers were. We got a report that Abrams tank fired 1 canister round and killed 9 guys.
Oh, jeez.
Like literally, like the insurgents, from what we heard, were just coming in on them, and they were just trying to fucking hold them back while they were trying to demill this place. The cool thing I saw was, since he was a MARSOC JTAC, he got a Spectre. So I actually got to see a Spectre gun in daylight shooting. So I seen a Spectre shoot in combat. He had the 40 millimeter, and it was just like poof, poof, poof.
Everybody loves a gunship, man.
Dude, I couldn't believe it. I was like, I got to see a fucking like C-130 gunship fire in daylight in combat. Like,
yeah, I didn't think they really
just
flew
seeing
that
that
much
was
during
cool.
the day.
They don't, but I swear to God, it was. I was like, there he is. He's right there. But I think it was because he was a JSOC. You know, he had priority. Yeah. But,
so you came. So you guys finished up like this deployment, and then came back, and that's about, when did you get back?
We got back, I want to say April of 13, and it was the shittiest welcome back I've ever gotten in my life.
How so?
I mean, I don't expect like them to roll out the red carpet, but it was because like the SALT came back. Like they greeted us, and then like everyone like left, and I was just like, all right, I guess I'm gonna go to my room and drink a beer, and that was it.
Like nobody wanted to hang out and chill.
No, and then like you got to remember, when the company deployed, it was like we got escorted in by like the Freedom Riders on the motorcycles, and like. Bro, there was dudes like hanging off the balcony of the barracks, and like everyone was fucking wasted for 3 days. And no, it wasn't even that, but like the big thing that pissed me off was like we got home, and then we had some downtime. I don't really remember what happened. I think I already took post deployment leave, and then Salt Chuck came home, and then they were done with their leave, so it was like, now what? And dude, we got pulled into one of the theater rooms in the barracks by the CO. It was like Delta and Chuck, and he's just got this slide, like personnel changes, and he flips this slide, and it's like going to S3, going to S6, my fucking name's on it, everybody's name. It was so rapid that like Stats Are Real had no idea, and he goes, oh, by the way, this is happening tomorrow.
What?
So
they're like just taking your teams apart. What was this? Disassembling your teams throwing them into headquarters?
They broke up the band, dude. Like right away. Like literally, I was so upset.
Why?
Like, the dude, I don't know. It was so dumb. Like he's like, this is happening like quick, fast, and in a hurry. So the next day I went into the trailer and I was like clearing out my stuff and I'm like, all right, sir, it was fun. I'll see you. Like that was literally it. It was like so heartbreaking. I go to the six shop and we get all these new corporals and stuff who are coming from like comm battalion and shit. And I just got off this crazy Georgian deployment with like, people shooting each other and seeing dudes killed. And they're like, all right, guys, we're going to lay it out, all the gear out today. And I would sit in the corner like, shut the fuck up. Don't even talk to me. I hate all of you. You were fucking pieces of shit. I was that disgruntled asshole.
Were you a corporal at the time? Or a sergeant?
I was a pretty senior corporal, if that makes it. I don't know. But these dudes were like, why are you so mad at me now? I didn't like because I was like, you don't know how Anglico works. Like, fuck you.
You were there.
It was hard for me to like pass the torch on,
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's how it is for everybody. But so what ended up, my saving grace was before I got home from Afghanistan, I got told that I was going to do Dawn Blitz, which if you're familiar with Iron Fist and the Japanese, it's the same fucking thing.
Yeah, it's just a different part of the year.
It's the same fucking thing. So I got told I was doing that. So I was already tasked to do that before I came home. So I rotted in S6 for like a week, and then Captain Watt came over to the six shop and talked to the commo and was like, look, I need Dimauro. He's in there. He was so stupid. He's like, yeah, whatever, take him, because he doesn't even know. So I went back to Delta for like a month and worked with I got put on a hodgepodge team. It was like me, this guy Fernandez as a senior FO, Walker, and Sanchez. We formed a FIC team and we trained the Japanese. And so it was kind of cool. Like we went to San Clemente Island with them and did some CAS and some naval guns with them. And 1-1 was like the driving force of the operation. So we kind of hung out with their guys. Like we ran ranges with them. Literally, Dawn Blitz was so stupid. Like we couldn't intervene in their training. Like the way they shot and the way their snipers were, like the grunts were like, hey, I can help them out. Like, technique wise, but I'm not allowed to like intervene. Like the Marines' role was to literally just make sure they didn't kill themselves. That's all it was.
Didn't you guys do like a bonsai charge across fucking San Clemente?
Yeah, dude, that was the final. That was the final operation. We were on an LFAM, like a live fire and range where you can shoot and move. And their tactics were no shit. They would just like unload with their saws, and then they would fix bayonets and charge. And at this point, we couldn't intervene. They were literally there to just use our ranges. And, like, I'm sure the officers were trying to gain some amphibious skills, but, like, again, we got told we couldn't intervene. So we just, like, let them do what they want to do. And I remember Walker was just, like, he was so fed up. I mean, he's, like, we had a Humvee from Anglico that we would drive around, and he goes, as soon as the last shell casing hits the ground, we're getting in that fucking Humvee and we're leaving. That was it.
Nice.
So while I was with Delta, I was talking to like admin and shit, trying to be like, hey, can I extend? Can I deploy again? Because I wasn't ready to get out at this point. I think I had like a year and a half left on my contract, but I wanted to deploy again. And I just was heartbroken that because when you're with, nothing against headquarters, but like when you're with the salts and your teams, when the company has bullshit to do, you're kind of protected. Like, they'll be like, hey, we need bodies to go to the golf course for you don't do that shit because you have training to do. But it felt terrible that I, one, lost that protection of the bullshit, and two, that I lost my guys, so suddenly. Yeah. I wasn't ready for it.
It sucks when you're just another headquarters guy.
It was so
you're
shitty.
Just God, my life sucks now.
Yeah, I remember, you talking about this a couple episodes ago. I don't remember who it was with, but I think you said, you would think that all your efforts meant something, but they didn't,
Yeah.
They were basically like, hey, we heard you did good, now fuck off and go lay out the radios. You know? It sucked. But so what ended up happening was, I got told that I wanted to extend for, a year, and I didn't even care. At this point, Delta was doing a MEU. Afghan, I tried to go back, it wasn't happening, so I was like, fuck it, I'll take the MEU. So I was like, okay, whatever. So I tried to extend for a year and retain at Anglico, And they were like, well, we won't let you extend for a year, but if you do a 2-year re-enlistment, we'll let you. And I'm like, okay. So they let me, they called it a re-enlistment. Like, I actually swore in and everything.
Yeah.
It was weird. So I actually extended for 2 more years because you had to have like an intention. So the intention was retained on station because there's a deployment, and Headquarters Marine Corps approved it. As soon as they approved it and I swore in, Captain Watt stabilized me so I couldn't get some dumbass orders. And then after that, it was like, all right, I'm back to Delta.
Back on Delta.
That was so relieving.
And how was oh, I'm sure it was. So about this time is when I was getting back from Afghanistan on my advisor team. And then when I was on my way back, when I was at Leatherneck, I think it was August or late July 13, that's when I re-enlisted and I got orders. They were like, hey, you're going to 1st Anglico. And I'm like, all right, cool.
We heard your name, and Gagnon knew who you were, so we were like, oh, he's coming in, he's super chill. So we knew you were coming in.
Yeah, so what had happened, the guy I interviewed on episode 3, Chris Lindbergh, he decided, man, I've done all this stuff, I'm away from home too much, kind of the same stuff a lot of us go through, and he decided to tap out and be done with the Marine Corps. He actually had those orders. Those were his orders. So when he decided to get out, they got turned over to me. And
how'd you feel about that?
Honestly, people hate on Lejeune, man, but I was at Lejeune for 7 years, and I loved it there. I mean, I didn't there was a lot to be desired. It's not like Southern California where there's a ton more stuff to do, but there's still stuff to do there.
I never had the pleasure.
I didn't mind it a lot. Like I said, a lot of people don't like it, but everything's so much cheaper, man. It's more of a smaller town mentality. I don't know. It wasn't that bad. And then I got orders to Anglico, and I was like, fuck, I don't want to go to California. I was like, fuck California, bunch of fucking hippies and shit. I went to deal with these liberal taxes and laws. And I was just, I don't know. But I was like, well, at least I'm going to Anglico, so that'll be cool. Well, I got here, and, California is obviously nice. I like it. It's still, there are some dumb laws. There's some bullshit taxes. As an example, and I think you knew about this, I took my kid down the street to go shoot the BB gun. There's an open dirt lot down the road from my place. And we walked down there. And apparently multiple people called the police and said there was a dude with his kid walking down the street with a gun. So the cop came over and told us, shit like that I wouldn't have
California.
To. Yeah.
Dude, I remember when you did your first PT session, I'll never forget this. Not that we're special, but I remember I went for a run and I'm in they called it rainbow gear, civilian PT gear.
Yeah.
And I saw you in green on green because you didn't know it was
Oh
chill.
yeah. Well, plus I hadn't got any of the shirts yet.
Yeah, but you didn't know it was dude, you can wear whatever the fuck you want for PT. I just remember, and I was like, he'll figure it out.
Yeah, I came over. So that, like I said, it's about the time I got back. I was with 10th Marines for a few months after I got back, teaching the JTAC, JFO primers, and supporting TCP shoots out there on the East Coast. And then I execute orders, got to Anglico. So Staff Sergeant Reel, the guy I took over for, was actually, because I was a lap mover, he was my MOS instructor at Fort Sill. So I knew him from that. I remembered him from that. And so I got out there, and I knew Top Smith also. I had talked to him. Him and I were at 10th Marines together also, because he was on an advisor team as well. And
great guy.
Solid dude. He'll be done here pretty soon. But anyway, so I get out there, and I was like, oh man, here we go, going to Anglico. This is what I wanted, but it's fuck, I hope I don't fuck up, because outside of Anglico, everybody's like, dude, they're the ones that get to control all the air and do all this stuff. So even though I was at JTAC with a deployment and all this other stuff, I was still like, oh, let's see how this goes. But
I mean, we just get a lot of big thing about Anglico is we just get a lot more opportunities than people don't.
Yeah. I think the unit itself and the people, the personalities that it gets, the people that it receives, helps drive people to think outside the box for training opportunities. I don't think there's anything that we did I couldn't have done at 10th Marines minus the amount of ammo that we got to shoot. But some of the other stuff that we got to do, we could set that up at any unit. I mean, you just have to, your unit has to be like, yeah, that's cool, you can do it. Which ours is pretty liberal with letting us do our own training as long as it was like legitimate.
Yeah, I mean, that was the big thing about ANGLICO was like, people might hate on me for saying this, and I sometimes I go back and forth on it. I sometimes don't think it's a great first unit for some things, but but it teaches you to, like you said, to think outside the box and not just be a damn robot. Like I remember multiple times coming in the office when I was like busy doing something, and I would like see some of our boots like sitting there, and I was like, hey guys, like look on the schedule. What are we doing later on this week? Like we're going to the range, so if you're not doing anything, fucking get the range box ready, get the targets ready, like, start doing, like, I always used to tell guys, like, I want you to be, proactive, not reactive. Like, I don't want you to be a fucking robot. I want you to think, like, what the fuck needs to be done right now, and just do it. And obviously, yeah, keep us in the loop, but I don't want you to be a, robot. We got to get stuff done.
That's the stuff I would try to push as a leader also, because I tried to make it clear, like, hey, here's the task. Once we get them done, you guys could leave. Like, I was never about having dudes sit at work to sit at work. Like, we're not a 9-to-5 hourly job. We're salary people. So the work's done, go home. And it's, it's just, it is what it is. You're not going to get 18 to 22 year olds for the most part to think like that. They just don't really, I don't think they really fully understand it.
I didn't when I started, but then I realized like what I could and couldn't do. And, honestly, like I think at ANGLICO, like your reputation is huge. Like,
oh, definitely,
dude. Like
because well, and not even just ANGLICO, but the JTAC community, the 0861 community, both are so small that even if I don't know you, like I can make a phone call, almost guarantee that I can make one phone call or two at most and find out what I need to know about you.
Yeah,
it's just such a small community. So if you have a bad reputation, if someone finds out, they're like, oh, Staff Sergeant Kramer's a piece of shit. Like he doesn't know how to do this, this, and this. Like people are gonna know about it, and it's gonna make it a lot tougher for you. And there were dudes like that. You'd get the guy, and you'd hear about him before you got him, and you're like, fuck, man. I hope the rumors aren't true.
I think people liked me because like I swear to God, dude, you probably remember this. My call sign at ANGLICO should have been "Don't ask how I got it." Like I remember like Captain Martinez or Major Martinez would be like, man, I need a radio antenna, and I would like leave the office and come back and be like, here you go. And he's like, how'd you? I'm like, don't worry about it. Like,
You're like the scrounger,
dude. I was so good at making shit happen like that.
You were the scrounger, man. You and Flores both,
dude, all the time. Like it was like, don't worry, don't ask what happened. Just know that we're gonna make this work.
I think you just took it seriously, and like we called you a gear queer a lot because you'd buy a lot of your own stuff and everything. But you were realistic. Like you'd get it, you'd try it, be like, this is cool and this is why I like it, or this sucks, I don't like it, you can have it, or someone else try.
Yeah.
Like I there's nothing wrong with that as long as because you were actually using it. You were buying stuff, trying it out. I didn't like this, or you were going to supply and getting, because we had a pretty good supply compared to other units. You could go there and get other stuff.
But ANGLICO, yeah. But I mean, I remember we'll get into the MEU like shortly, but when we chopped to the MEU and like shit just wasn't getting done.
Oh yeah.
And we like were struggling, like on ship we like couldn't get anything done. So like people are probably gonna make fun of me for this, but like I remember like months before the MEU, Flores and I took like 3 trips to Home Depot and just dropped money on like batteries and like fucking shit, like tools, like because we had like,
yeah, no, I remember you guys doing that.
Yeah, we went to this place called Fry's, which is an electronics store, and we were both comm guys. We dropped mad money on like radio connectors and shit because I was like, I don't fucking care. I was so sick of like not having shit. I was like, I will just eat the money because I need to fucking make the mission happen.
Yeah. No, I mean, it sucks you have to fall back on that sometimes, but I mean, that's thinking outside the box in one way, I guess. You guys made it happen. You and Flores.
I wanted to do
made
it.
The comm work, so
I was so sick of not having things. Like, oh well, this thing's broken. We can't do it. I'm like, no, we're gonna fucking make it work.
Okay, so before I got to the team, when I was still, in Afghanistan or back at Lejeune doing my thing, waiting to come, you guys had already got notification like, hey, you're going on the MEU. And you're chopping on this date. What were you guys doing training-wise in preparation? I know some of you guys went to jump school. Not that was preparation for the MEU. That was just a nice to have, but...
So our schedule basically boiled down to this. We did one ELA bend with Stats Aren't Real. That was our very first time going out there.
Which is a bombing... For those that don't know, it's a bombing range in Arizona that we'd go to. It's probably my second favorite place to go drop bombs at.
I think in the last episode you mentioned San Clemente, which I liked.
Yeah.
But I always had fun at Chocolate Mountains or Ela Bend. I don't know why. I hate the fucking desert, but I just had some good times out there, man. Like I really did.
Yeah. I don't know. Anytime we were on the OP, we had a good time.
So we did one Ela Bend. It was pretty funny. We were controlling A-10s like all day, like doing the normal thing. But there was a random section of Apaches out there. They were British.
Yeah.
And they were flying by the OP one day, and they radioed us that they were transiting the AO. And we literally were like, hey, how much time do you guys have left? And they're like, an hour. And we're like, do you guys want to do some casts? And they're like, sure. So we snatched them out of the air and started running 9 lines with them.
That's the good thing about Gila Bend.
Like, and Anglico, because we're like, let's fucking train.
Yeah, let's do some work.
We were about to go home, and these Apaches flew by, and they're like, dude, we're going to snatch these guys up and do something with them. And they were down, so we're like, fuck yeah, let's do it.
So then you guys...
We went back to Idaho.
Okay.
But this one, despite what I said about the first one, this one was way more legit. We were sleeping out. We would stay out on the range for Monday through Friday, and the weekend we stayed at it was called Gowan Field. I think it's like a Idaho National Guard base and an Air Force base, but that's where we chilled in like barracks. So we would like come back, shower, and like go out in town for the weekend. But during the week we were like in the field, and it was a lot different. Like we were running like legit missions, like fixed drills, like patrolling out into the impact area where we could and calling in 9 lines and shit. Flores and I, we did a lot of HF training out there. Flores and I built this giant, like, massive HF antenna and did a shot back to Pendleton.
Yeah. The famous slanted V, or whatever. Was that what it's called? The slanted V. I forget them now.
Yeah, I hated HF, but it worked. So we did some HF training out there, and it was a lot more. We got a lot more out of it.
Then you went to JTM also, right?
So the guys went to JTM. So I did my re-enlistment out there in the field, like it was official. And then we got home from that. The guys went to JTM, and Walker Garcia and myself went to airborne school.
Okay. How was airborne school? What did you think about that?
It's very, very, I'm going to use this word. I hope no one gets butthurt. It's very Army gay. Yeah.
Go ahead. You want to, for the people that have never been to jump school, you want to kind of explain what it's like to go through as a Marine?
Yeah, so we were attached to the MEU, or not attached, but we were making liaison with the MEU, so we got in touch with the recon guys. So Anglico, and the whole time I'd been there, like the whole jump mission disappeared. It was only for the reservists, so they're like, oh, it's going to come back. It's not. So we finally talked to the CO, Colonel Russell, and he was like, I think because he was a jumper, he had some sympathy because he came from like MSOB. He was like, all right, if we talked to the recon guys and they gave us seats, and they're like, we're not paying for it though. So funny thing, we go to Colonel Russell and he's like, well, if you get the seats, we'll pay for it. And we're like, fun fact, we already got seats. I don't think he knew that we had that. And he's like, fuck. Well, I said I would do it, so pick a couple guys and go. So it was done by priority. So the idea, so it was Martinez, Walker, Garcia, and myself. So the idea was 2 JTACs and 2 senior comm guys first. And then we would do like another round, if we can swing it, of like the next priority guys. But they wanted like, not like we're going to static line jump into a combat zone, but if it happened, they're like at least a JTAC and a comm dude. So that's so we go there, and it's like, dude, it's like half of the class is like brand new Army dudes who literally just graduated basic. They graduate basic and they go to airborne school. Hundreds and hundreds of guys. Like it's all a syllabus that they have to follow, and they just shuffle you through it. So you do ground week, which is the first week where you learn how to put the fucking parachute on, and you go through all these drills. They kind of let us go because they didn't really fuck with the Marines that much, because we're all senior NCOs and officers. Like, it was funny. Like, I was a corporal, but they kept calling me sergeant, and I just didn't even fight it.
Yeah.
every time there was like a working party that needed to be done, they would be like, "Oh, E4 is in below. Go to the working party." But E4, what they meant was like, because there's like no corporals.
They're specialists, yeah.
They meant specialists, and like I would not go to the working party. I would chill with like Walker, and like one time I would get like this smart ass specialist, like, "Hey man, you're an E4," and I'd be like, I would fucking life the dude out. I'd be like, "Bitch, in my fucking branch, I'm an NCO, so you can like suck my dick. Get the fuck away from me." And he never said it. Like I literally chewed dudes out. So, I'm like, you can go fuck yourself. I'm not helping you, you know, because there's hundreds of these fucking boot army dudes, and like you guys can do it.
What do you think the hardest part of jump school was?
Just dealing with the bullshit.
Really?
Because the jump masters, I mean, it's a lot of like, you understand why they're doing it, because like it's in the aircraft, it's like this has to happen before this. And a lot of the dumb shit you do is like anything else in the military. It's because something bad happened, like somebody might have died doing this, or like, you know. So you just have to suck it up and deal with it. Like, I mean, I feel bad for these drum masters when they read you shit. Like they're giving you instruction, but they have to memorize it verbatim from a book. So they sound like robots when they're talking, but it's because they're forced to memorize it. But it's all safety, you know. So you just deal with it. Like you learn how to put the parachute on the first week, then the second week they call it Tower Week, where you go on those stupid fucking towers. I was there for Thanksgiving at the time, so we didn't have time to do it. Anytime there's like a bad weather, or like they have like some training, you know, they don't have enough time, they don't do the tower. So you climb up on like you do this other training where like you climb on a 34-foot tower and you're clipped into a cable like a zip line, and you leap from the tower and you zip line out, and you're supposed to practice like how to exit the aircraft. And then your third week is when you actually jump. You do five jumps. It's like you do like one or two of them slick, and then like two with combat gear. It's like a rucksack between your legs, and then one of them's at night. I say night, but I was like the first stick to go, and it was like twilight, so it wasn't a true night jump. And they teach you how to jump two different parachutes while you're there. One, they're kind of transitioning to like this newer chute, so you learn how to fly that one. It's called like the T-11. But funny thing, like they show you like how to like, if an emergency happens in midair, like what to do. And like if you are going, like, you know, there's dudes in front of you just like jumping out of the plane, like you're in a straight line, then all of a sudden you like pivot left or right, and you just hop out of the aircraft, and you're like, if the plane overshoots the drop zone, they're going to get stopped, and this is what you do. And I was like, oh, it's never going to happen. The jump master on this flight was a Marine staff sergeant, and I'm in, they're like, green light, go, and I'm like shuffling along. And all of a sudden, he puts his hand in front of my face. He's like, red light, red light, red light. I'm like, oh shit! So the plane turns around, and now I'm the number one jumper. I'm like, oh shit! But I actually liked it because you're already like turned and like squared up to the door.
Yeah.
And like the Marines.
But you had time to think about it. Were you looking out like?
But it was actually. But you only jump from like 1,200 feet, which is not that high. You can see the fucking ground right there. You're in the air for like maybe 30 seconds. I don't fucking. It's not that long.
Yeah. What was your first jump like? Was you like, dude, oh shit, here we go?
Fucking scared shitless, dude. So yeah, you mean you just remember everything you're taught, and then all of a sudden like the chute opens up. The thing about landing is like the drop zone in Georgia is like a fucking sandbox, so you're landing on like a pillow.
Yeah.
You know?
So you never had any bad landings or anything while you were there?
I didn't have a bad landing, but I fell on a dude's parachute midair.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so like the parachutes, like when one parachute goes over another one, it's called sharking the air. So the top parachute will collapse because the air gets like canceled out or some shit. So I jumped. It was a daytime jump, and we were slick. They call it Hollywood, so I had no gear. I jumped, and my risers were twisted. So I like, you do this like dumb bicycle kicking motion to like unspin them. By the time I got that undone, I just feel like something from underneath me just like dropped, like on a roller coaster. I just like dropped. And what happened was I drifted over a dude's chute, but I didn't see him because my shit was twisted. I was focused on that. And then all of a sudden I see like this parachute like wafting in front of my face, and I literally opened it up, and there was a dude hanging there, and we were like entangled, and he was like some dumb private boot, and he was like, oh my god, and I was like, holy shit. So they train you how to get out of that, and it's so dumb. You're like, that'll never fucking work. They tell you to grab his risers and push them away. I'm like, that's not gonna work, but you practice it so many times, like dry. Instinctively I just grabbed his shit and pushed him. and then I just feel my chute go, and it opens, and I'm like, holy, and I pulled as hard as I could to steer away from this motherfucker, and then maybe 10 seconds later, we smacked the ground. And he comes running over to me. He's like, I'm so happy you remembered what to do. We almost died. And I shook his hand. I was like, are you okay? He's like, yeah. Are you all right? I'm like, okay, let's get the fuck out of here.
Good first jump. All right.
That was like my third. But I was like,
okay.
That's kind
crazy,
of when,
though.
that's when, like, you know you're not done. You have, like, 2 more. But I'm like, yeah, I got this. I'm good at this. Oh, fuck, I'm going to die. Yeah, dude, it's just dealing with all this stupid crap. But I graduated there, like, the beginning of December. And then I came back to Anglico and putzed around for a little bit. And then we went on Christmas leave, which was dope.
Okay. And then I got there right after that. So I came back, and you guys had already checked into the MEU. Yeah. And I checked into Anglico on a Friday, and then turned around and checked into the MEU on that Monday, and then we started our workup.
Oh my god, yeah, being chopped to the MEU is like different because it's like you're at Anglico, but like you're not with them anymore. That was a weird concept for me. That sucked because like we always had to like drive down to a different part of the base, Delmar, if we needed something.
Yeah, I think the problem with, I don't know why they attach a MEU team to the headquarters. And then you have to spend half your time explaining to the headquarters, the MEU headquarters, why you need to go do this training, or why, like, you're not supposed to be sitting here guarding a prisoner. You know, like they tried to do to the guys up in one of the training events. They tried to have them stay there.
Walker's team up at Rut.
Yeah. They tried to have them stay there and guard fake prisoners. And they're like, dude, fuck this. We have real training to do. So they threw him on the helicopter and flew him back to Pendleton.
They don't know what to do with us until it's like, I don't want to say too late, but so we'll get into the workup PMIT, which is the first certification of 3 that you do in the workup. So it was like the first, we got on ship, and really quickly we disembarked to go to San Clemente Island to do the fires package.
Yeah.
But I remember Watt saying in the brief before we landed on the island, there was like, they were in like the briefing room, and you might know about this. He's like, there's going to be a destroyer out there, so we're going to have to do naval guns. And I think most of the Marines were like, oh, God, like flipping through their templates. Like and then Watt like raised his hand, and they're like, oh, yeah, you Anglico guys, you know how to do that, right? And we're like,
yeah, it's in the name, man.
Yeah, we kind of know how to do that. So we landed, and we were like calling in the naval guns. So it was like the one moment they liked us, and then they're like, all right, fuck you guys. Like,
I never really understood I just don't understand how they use a sled the way they do, or how they did. It seemed like kind of a waste. Luckily on our deployment, I think the best thing that happened to us is getting pulled off and going to Kuwait for a few months. At least for me, you were on a different ship, so I know you got to come. You came to Kuwait also, but
yeah, we made it event. I mean, so basically, like
or you spent a lot of time in Djibouti too, though, right?
Less than 24 hours. That was Walker's team.
Okay.
Walker's team. So like we do the not very, I don't want to say uneventful workup, but like we do all 3 certifications, and I don't know. Did anything happen during that? We just shot. I know we shot on San Clemente Island for
during the workup. I don't think anything. I mean, not anything out of the norm. We just did.
We just had to play ball. I mean, that's all it was.
I think the coolest thing that we did was liaison with the other elements, like take the other S3 guys and be like, hey, MPs, come out with your dogs and we'll rappel and fast rope and stuff with the dogs, and we did shit like that. Or like, hey, we're going to the range and we have 100 grenades.
You guys made friends with that one MP sergeant dude who, like, what the hell was his name? What? You remember who I'm talking about?
I'm not sure.
Anyway, there was like this one MP.
There was a few of them we talked to. But yeah, I mean, we had a pretty good working relationship. I think we did a good job of like extending a warm welcome to other people to bring guys out. Because part of it was one, we knew that it would serve us later on. Like if we needed something, like the supply guy that got to come out and blow stuff up would be appreciative.
The fucking talk about liaison, like we even did liaison like unprofessionally. Like I remember like a week before we deployed, we were in the barracks and we're having a barracks party, all the Anglico guys and all the tankers from First Tanks. They stayed in our barracks and because they're from 29 Palms.
Yeah.
So they stayed in our barracks and like one by one they're like walking by the hallway and I'm like, bro, what's up? Come in and drink with us. So by the end of the night, all the tankers are in there. were hammered. And I was like, dude, I'm a fucking calm dude. You need anything, I got you. It sounds dumb, but then when we got on the San Diego where the tanks were, some of their dudes were on mess duty and they gave me like more steak. And like, dude, the tankers were like our boys. The best, we did some good liaisoning.
The best dude you can know on ship is the guy serving chow.
Right, but like Captain Watt was trying to be all professional. Like, we need to liaison with the other sections. I was like, oh, we already did. We got wasted with those guys, and now we're buddy-buddy.
Yeah, we're on top of it.
It works. I mean, the tankers are cool fucking dudes. I like them.
That's the one good thing about the MEU is that you are exposed to so many different people from so many different jobs that you can meet a lot of people, not only where you can learn stuff at the MEU, but later on in your career, like if you need help with something or you need some a little bit of information, you can contact one of those people that you met. So
the weird thing about being on ship for our fixed 7 and 8 was we were deaded in the berthing with recon. And like, let me just get this out of the way. Like, I respect those guys. Like, they're super professional. I like, some of their dudes are just like unbelievable guys. But there was a couple of their guys more junior and kind of junior NCO level where they didn't even talk to us for the whole deployment. Because they're, from what I understand, like when we met your recon det in Kuwait, it was like they're a little bit more welcoming. But again, I don't want to hate on them, but our guys, there was always that barrier of like, you're not recon and I am. You know, it was kind of like walking on eggshells with those dudes. You know, your guys were awesome.
Yeah, we were pretty. I mean, we worked with our guys up in the SAC, the Supporting Arms Coordination Center on the ship. So we kind of kept to ourselves. They kind of kept to themselves. We didn't live with them, but we did work around each other. And I think what we had was that they would come in to use the computers and stuff, and me or one of the guys would be teaching a class on call for fire or close air support or whatever, and you would see them in the back listening in on it. And then eventually, like, their staff NCOs came over, like Williams and stuff came over and was like, hey man, you know, we're JTACs too, you know, I want my guys to go through this training, like that class you gave on, like I did a fratricide class, you know, and they were I
never took your class. I heard it was awesome though.
They were like, we want to send our guys through this class, so can we set it up? And that was cool because we had a good working relationship. We didn't. There's always this stupid. I mean, you know how it is. Fucking people hate on each other. Recon dudes hate on Anglico. Anglico dudes hate on Recon. Like whatever.
Yeah.
You know, as long as I always told the dudes like, don't try to be something you're not. Just do your fucking job. That's all you got to do. Yeah. And the same for them. Like, if they tried to come at me like, oh, look at our JTACs. Like, dude, most of their dudes weren't that good. That's why we were there to help them out.
Well, it's because the JTAC on a recon team is like a team leader and the hearse master.
Exactly.
And the sniper. And they have like they have all these fucking quals. And
that's,
it's like,
that's not a knock on their dudes. Just like, they're within their lane. And with us, it was like, hey, we don't know how to clear rooms because we're Anglico. You know, hey, you guys are doing room clearing drills. Can we come in and do the training with you guys? And that's just kind of how we worked with those guys. And it was a good working relationship. And I still talk to some of them still today. You know,
like I'll give you an example. Like some of the dudes, like, you know, like they would fuck with us and we would fuck with them. But it was to the point where like we weren't like fighting, but it was to the point where it was like I wear an Anglico shirt with the Anglico jack on it. And they're like, look at that thing. It looks like ours. They probably stole it from us. And I'm like, I didn't fucking come up with it. What do you want me to do? You know?
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. They took a jack. Whatever, dude. I guess. I don't know how all that works.
I don't know what you want me to do.
I think a lot of dudes started going with that newer logo because dudes were tired of wearing gold wing shirts that, you know, when almost nobody was going to jump school. So that was just a natural change.
Just the reserve side,
Yeah, so, you know, like I said, I had a good relationship with them. I think, I want to say, I really want to get, like, a Vietnam vet on here. There's a couple I've kind of put it out there, too, and haven't got too much back, but I want to say that Anglico and Recon worked together a lot more back in the day, you know, than they do now, but it's just a personality thing, man. You know? I thought it was hilarious because I left, you got out, I got sent over to the MEU, did that deployment, came back, and then Delta went back out. They asked me if I wanted to go on the deployment, and I'm like, I'm not going to go on the deployment. They ended up getting to go out and do some pretty cool shit from the MEU. And it was funny because they were the only ones that got off the ship and actually got to do anything during that deployment. And we were just like, I told them, well, never mind. It was just, I thought it was funny. They brought one recon guy with them to fly the Puma, but outside of that, no one else from the ship got off. And I just thought that was funny because of all the shit that recon will talk about Anglico dudes. It's like, dude, like, they don't even let you guys do the VBSS mission that you train for. Like, they bring in Navy guys to do it, which sucks for them. I don't understand why anybody would just go to recon and not MARSOC, you know, but that's just, I'm not in that world. That's a veil that I haven't peeked behind fully. So I can't
speak on any of that.
It's just a stupid rivalry between the two units that, like I said, it's dumb and we both have our own mission. So I don't even know why.
Yeah. But you know, then we like got to go to Kuwait. That was the next big thing, right?
Yeah. Kuwait on the deployment. And that's when we linked up and we were out there with recon and, we got to do, remember Thanksgiving? We all ate.
That was one of the best ranges I've ever done.
We all ate, and then we went out with recon to the range, and it was like a table full of ammo. It was like, all right, shoot what you want. Here's a 240.
There was no, like, I don't want to say rules, but it wasn't like hammer pair, you know, contact. It was like, and we had
everybody was like legitimately shooting. People were having little mini shooting competitions.
Yeah,
it was all safe.
We freaking had those green Ivan targets, the ones that you would hit and they would fall down.
Yeah,
but it was an army range, and they had them like out to like 800. And I remember that was one of the first times I ever like shot and hit a target with an M4 at like 800 yards or meters.
Yeah, like, that was a sick range.
It was so cool. Like Flores and I were like dialing in on the last target. You could barely see it, and we were like spotting for it. We were just having fun. It was like cool, you know.
Yeah, and then we got to go out to OP-10 a lot and work.
Yep.
I think I was telling somebody the other day. It seemed like we were working CAS at least 2 to 3 times a week.
You did a lot. Yeah.
We had that Apache death there, so we got to do a bunch of work with them.
Kuwaiti Apaches, they were really good.
Kuwaiti Apaches were badass. They were flying.
They were so good. Like they would like echo all of our commands, and like they would be like laser. Like they were like on their shit.
They were flying the Apaches like the Marines fly the Cobra.
Yeah.
Whereas the Army is like super slow and steady, and the aircraft's moving kind of slow and big orbits. And the Kuwaiti Apache, those dudes were like popping and diving, and they shot that. Were you there when they shot the Hellfire at that bathroom trailer or whatever they drug out there to blow up?
I don't remember that. I remember they rifled the Hellfire like almost perpendicular to us, and we were like shitting our pants because we were doing a ground-based laze.
It had to be like the same day. It had to be the same day.
This was at night. We rifled the Hellfire. We were using the laser designator, and it was like we were waiting for it to hook around and kill us.
Well, yeah. Anytime you shoot a Hellfire in your ground-based lasing, it's always like, I hope I didn't fuck this up. You know, like the geometries. But I remember that too. I remember it coming off and like thinking the same thing. Like if it turns towards us, I'm gonna tell them to take the laser. Fucking, yeah. But no, man, that was a great time out there. It was just funny. After being out there for a few months and doing a bunch of work, and then we go to Saudi Arabia, which was
that sucked because we were back with the Mew.
Yeah, and well, we were back with the Mew, and it was just such like gross living conditions, like that tent.
Like, the porta shitters, like for how long we were there, like 2 weeks.
Yeah,
they never got emptied.
No, they emptied them every morning. They just filled up every day. Yeah,
don't tell me that.
Because I would go out there and try to use it right after they emptied it, but it was always disgusting. And like these aren't porta johns like what normal people think about. It looked like each one was made individually. So, like, some of them you'd go into and you have to, like, duck your head so you don't hit your head on the door. The other ones you have to hop up.
The whole seat is, like, canted 30 degrees.
Like... Yeah. I remember one time I went in and there was, like, you know, a little urinal kind of thing to the side. I started pissing on it and I realized I'm basically peeing on my feet because there was no hose to the bottom. It was just draining down onto the floor. I was like, what the fuck?
We had this giant tent that would just, like, hold humidity and moisture. So it was like you'd wake up and, like, all your shit would be, like, wet.
It sounded like rain at night.
Yeah, like, literally, like, your bag would be, like, not soaking, but it was, like, the uncomfortable damp fucking shit, and you're like, God damn it.
Yeah, that was a good time. So then we get back on ship. We are all tanned, and we've been working the whole time. And I remember getting back on I don't know what it was like on yours.
You guys got fucked. We didn't.
How so?
Well, because like we literally got back, and like I think Walker and Lloyd took some pity on us because it was near Christmas time. Dude, it must have been like 3 weeks from Christmas. Something like that.
It was less than that. I think we were only on
close. He literally was like, "We're not gonna bother you till after New Year's, and then we're gonna start training again."
Oh,
so
see,
literally, they were just like, "You have 2 weeks off."
Well,
like they didn't want to be back on ship, and we didn't either. So we just like chilled, and then right after New Year's is when we started doing like sims and teaching classes again.
I mean, that side of it wasn't too bad for us, honestly. I mean, I obviously got to make that call on what we did there, but for me, it was like we got back on the ship, and the other staff sergeant, the fires chief on the MEU, and I won't say his name, but he came back. We walked in, and I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's just like, "Fuck you," and I was like, "Okay, cool." And he's like, I was like, "Hey, what's up, man?" He's like, "Hey, how was it?" And then I was like, "Oh, it was," and he cut me off and said, "Fuck you." And I was like, oh, "Okay." And he's like, "Hey, I'm taking my dudes off of ship tax, and your guys are filling in for them." And I'm like, "Fuck that, dude." Like, I'm like, "Hey, man," I was like, "Here's the deal, dude." I was like, "My guys are working too. Just because we weren't on ship,
wrong.
Yeah, just because we weren't on ship doesn't mean like my dudes are going to come in and do all the work now. Like, they were also working. Yeah, it was better. Obviously, he was not on ship, but it is what it is. Like, and you know what? I felt that pain on my second MEU because I was the guy stuck on ship being miserable. So
no, it sucks. Like, if you're not on watch or like doing ship tax, you're viewed as like fucking around.
Yeah,
it's like we were off ship, but we were working, and we didn't just hang out. Like, if we didn't have any air, like you and Watt would like make shit for us.
Yeah, we were making stuff happen.
I remember going out with like weapons company like Cat Platoon from 2-1 and doing like a raid with them, like a fake raid. Like, we did a bunch of shit.
We did that combined arms exercise, or not combined arms exercise. That basically TACP shoot with the Army guys where they brought out the HIMARS. They had HIMARS out there. Were you out there for that?
That we had like just gotten there. Yeah,
I remember we got up on the OP and they're like, "Hey, we're shooting HIMARS," and I'm like, "Well, we got Apaches coming in at this time." And the FO, he was like a junior soldier. He's like, "All right, I'll tell him to shut it off." And I'm like, "Why?" I was like, "Let's integrate it, dude." And he's like, I was like, "Here, tell him to shoot this, and I'll tell the Apache guys this." And he's like, "This is crazy." Like, I don't know. They don't really get to see it as much as we do. So,
well, nobody really does. Like, I remember in Saudi Arabia, they were to end the operation. Like, LAR was gonna like push out into the impact area and do. It was basically like a show for the Saudis.
Yeah,
they were like gonna push out into the impact area and like shoot the LAVs and then dismount grunts. And I remember we were running Cobras like in front of them, but it was like safe. It was within like our safe boundaries. And I don't want to say his name, but the BLT CO was out there. And I remember he just like puts a fat dip in and calls Watt over and just chews him out. And it was like we were right, but it was like you couldn't argue it. He's like, "That's too fucking close," and it's that whole integrating thing. Everyone's scared of it. Yes, it's dangerous, but we knew what the fuck we were doing.
So the thing though with that CO was a platoon commander in Nazaria. He was one of the platoon. He was there when the Amtrak got struck by the A-10s. So when we were, what happened was we were doing the controls. He that's exactly what he said. Like, "Why the fuck are they shooting so close to my guys?" And we're like, "Dude, we're totally outside of the
we're far as fuck.
We're good. Like, we're within range restrictions."
And they were running guns only. So
no, they were shooting rockets as well. But
it's not going to.
The battalion gunner was there, and he was like, "What do you think about it, gunner?" And he's like, "I mean, it looks safe to me, sir." And what ended up happening was we continued on, but he was like, while they're doing those runs, the guys, because what they were doing is they were practicing like a raid. So it was like a line of LAVs pull up, everyone dismounts, and then rockets and guns would come in perpendicular to those guys with the helicopters. Well, he made it was like, "All right, well, we'll keep doing it, but they'll stay in the vehicle until the air attack is done. Then they'll dismount." Anyway, later that day, the gunner got into his gunner program. I don't know what they use to check the range regulations and restrictions, and like he can actually tell you like what the beaten zone for the weapons and stuff. And he said like we were actually holding them more safe than what we were required. So I was like, cool. So the next day it wasn't a big deal, but yeah.
That's probably why you put the dip in then.
The gunner was cool. I can't remember his actual...
the platoon commander.
The battalion commander.
He probably had like pizza. I mean, rightfully so. That fucking sucks, but still.
Yeah, yeah. But let dudes train. Like we know what the hell we're doing. That's the whole point of us being there. So
we basically that was really it, man. Other than that, we just like finished up.
After that, came back. We got home. We did a lot of work when we got home. We did a lot of ranges and did a lot of turnover.
With that, like we got home like. When did we get home? We left in July of 14. We got home like February.
Yeah, it was the end of February.
So I was getting out in October, and like on the Mew, I had already made the decision to get out because I actually got orders to 3rd Recon in Okinawa in Kuwait.
Yeah.
But I had already like kind of dabbled with the idea of getting out, and I was starting to talk to my dad about going into the family business. So now that I had an exit strategy, it was starting to look better. So I'd made a decision to get out. Well, we could talk more about that later, but it's like from when we got home from the Mew to like a month before I got out was probably one of my favorite times in Anglico.
Yeah.
Because at this point, I went on the Mew as a sergeant, and I came back and I was like pretty senior at Anglico. And like you said, I wasn't deploying anymore, so the focus wasn't so much on me. I got to stay with the SALT because I became the comm chief, and up till the last second, they never like pulled me to headquarters. So I became like one of the junior like training officers with like you and Watt. Because like, I mean, again, like Watt and I weren't deploying again, so like when we'd go do ranges, the focus was on like the newly formed FIC teams, and I would just like do ranges up the ass and just have fun and then just like teach, which was amazing.
I always enjoyed going on the ranges, man. You can't beat a day of shooting for free,
But I got to like teach, which was amazing. But on that subject, I think that's one of the biggest things that like pissed me off about Anglico was like you as an enlisted guy stay there for like a while, and officers generally, Watt stayed there for a while, and some do, but generally they come from the battery or the wing. They maybe do like 1-2 deployments and then they go. So basically, like you come back and you get brand new team leaders from the battery or the Big Brother Marine Corps.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying they have to like be cowboyish, but they have to chill the fuck out, because like you come back as a sergeant and like you're seasoned. And this dude comes in from the fleet, and he's like, "Are these my men? All right, guys, green on green, 5 o'clock PT." It's like, okay, we're gonna fucking teach you how it works. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you're always dealing with like new guys.
Well, that's where it comes into play that you're like your SALT, excuse me, your SALT chief has to be like, look, like, here's what we do, and this is why we do it. And it's not like we're just blowing shit off to just blow shit off, like. We just stressed about different things. Instead of stressing about haircuts and hands in pockets and whatever, it was like, hey, can you load this key? Can you do this 9-line? Can you drive this vehicle? Can you, whatever. So,
it's just like, it was personal to me because, like, I'm not going to, all right, so
I'll bleep out his name.
Yeah. We got formed for the Mew, and he found out he was getting CSON, and he was still a Lance Corporal at the time. He didn't know anything about him. He goes, "Oh, I got CSON. I like a challenge." And before I could say anything, Stat Sergeant Real cuts him off and goes, "Yeah, he saved a Georgian's life who was shot in the chest. He's been in like a bunch of gunfights. He's a good fucking Marine. Don't you ever fucking say that about him. He thought he was like some fucking boot." I'm like, no, he's a fucking solid dude. Like, yeah, that pissed me off too. It's like,
I try not to. That's one of those things is when you go to a unit or go anywhere, you can't just assume.
No,
I give everybody the benefit of the doubt. Like I show up thinking like, hey, everyone here is good. Everyone knows what they're doing. Everyone can follow direction, and then I play it that way until somebody can't. Like you as an individual suck at this. Let's fix that. Or you as an individual do this way better than this. So. I feel like I try to be pretty fair.
I gotta ask you, like, I started to become like a angry, disgruntled fuck. What did you think of me when you first met me?
I honestly, it took me a little while to get to know the personalities on the team. I didn't think you. I mean, you were just an angry person. That's just it. That's just how you were.
That's true.
But you did your job. I never had a problem with you.
I yelled at a lot of people.
When I remember hearing Sanchez talk like 3 days after I'd been there, or I'd been there for a couple days, and with his country ass accent, and I thought he was fucking around.
Yeah, his name is so for.
I didn't realize that was the first time I'd ever heard him actually speak. And he's like you're about to say, he's a Mexican dude, or he looks like a Spanish dude.
He's a Mexican dude.
Is his family from Mexico, or
I don't know, but he's a Mexican dude from, where is he from? Mississippi,
Alabama, or Mississippi? Yeah, I think it's Mississippi.
He's a Mexican dude, but he has the most country fucking accent you've ever heard.
Seriously, the first time he spoke, I was like, "Quit fucking around! Like, what are you doing?" You know, like what? And then I was like, "Oh shit, that's how he actually talks. Like, he talks like a super country white dude." And I was like, "Okay,
he does."
But no, I thought the team overall. I mean, there were some issues with the dude I had in headquarters, but even him at his job, he wasn't bad. I think everybody kind of got their job, or everybody pretty much got their job. You only started to see people that had issues when you started looking at their secondary and tertiary jobs. Like, hey, you're a radio operator. You're a good radio operator. I'm going to send you to JFO. Well, you may not be that good as a JFO, but you're a really good radio operator. You know what I'm saying? Like, so dudes, I think all the dudes were pretty good at their primary job. They're really good for the most part.
I think you and I know who I'm talking about here, but there was one dude who was, I'm just a radio operator, and it was like, no, you need to do a lot more.
I mean, everybody's got to pick up at a small team. When you're looking at a small team like that, I mean,
that was the funny part. We skipped this in the MU workup. I got sent to JFO.
Yeah, that's right,
dude. It was fucking hilarious because I came home and I took honor grad of my class, and everyone was like, "Ooh, congratulations!" I'm like, you got to understand that by the time I went to JFO, I had been in ANGLICO for 4 fucking years.
Yeah.
That's like if I didn't take top of the class, it was like, you're a fucking moron. What have you been doing this whole time?
Yeah, that's like when they sent Jerry, after he lat moved from radio to Forward Observer, and then he went to JFO, or he was already a JFO, and then he went to TACP school. It was like, is he ready? And it's like, yeah, he's 100% ready. Like,
yes.
I remember doing controls with them in Djibouti, and honestly, he was good enough. I felt comfortable. I could have just left and let him run the range by himself. And that's just kind of a natural thing for guys that gave a fuck, and that understood the serious. Because Jerry did a pretty serious deployment. Was he on the company deployment with you?
No.
He did a pretty good deployment with ANGLICO. Was it? It was with ANGLICO.
He wasn't on the company tour. He was on the Salt Chuck tour that was in 2014, and I think that's what. We were on the MU, and they went to Afghanistan.
He doesn't really.
Most of the Salt went to Leatherneck to demill it, but him and one other team got to go with Charlie Company 17 and do some legit shit. He's
got some pretty good videos that he showed me while we were on ship of some of the stuff. They were under fire and he's requesting air and stuff, and I'm like, that's pretty sick, dude. So
yeah, I was just like you said a few minutes ago. Yeah, so I don't know if he was with 17, but anyway, what you said a while ago, he definitely gave a fuck. I liked that about Jerry.
A lot of the guys are like that. A lot of the guys.
No, but you could tell he really was I mean, because he really wanted to lat move, but he just embraced the stuff we did.
Yeah. Overall, man, ANGLICO was a good time, and it sucked when you left, and it was kind of that period where everybody was kind of peeling away, which kind of makes it worse, especially
Flores left, everybody.
Yeah, especially when you're like I was one of the last ones to leave, so all the dudes I knew were already gone. And it was like, oh, hey, it's time for Staff Sergeant Kramer to leave, and nobody's there that I know, barely, or any guys that I knew and stuff. So I was like, this kind of sucks. But yeah, it does suck watching your buddies get out and everything. But you're doing big things now. So if you want to talk about your transition out, maybe any advice for guys that are planning on getting out, and kind of what you're up to today.
Yeah. So like I said, I had my dad runs he runs a machine shop with my uncle, and we do a lot of work in the aerospace industry. So He's like in his 60s now. He's looking to get out soon. But at the time, he was like, hey, we have some work here. We have a space for you. And so I had already had an exit strategy. That was the big thing. Like in 13, I didn't have a good plan. So now I had something going for me. So I literally got out in like October of 15. And I went to work full time 4 days later.
Oh, really?
Right away. My uncle was like, you don't want to take like a month off or anything. And I was like, not really. I don't want to fall into a rut. So I went to work full time. It was strictly on the job training. It's all I really needed. I've been doing it for 4 years now. You could get a degree in, manufacturing and stuff, but it's not really needed, So I did that. I lived with my parents for a couple months after I got out. But I had been on my own for all those years, in the barracks. But you're taking care of yourself still.
Yeah.
So I was like so used to that. I was like, I can't live with them. So all 3 of my deployments, I saved like all of my money. I didn't go to Vegas and splurge. I didn't do any stupid shit. So I had a pretty good nest egg. So I bought a car and I bought a condo that I live in now. So I got out, I had a job, a car, and a place to live, all within like less than 6 months.
That's awesome, man.
Yeah. So, things. But here's the thing: like transitioning for me was a little bit hard. Like I'll never forget this. Like none of my friends I kept in touch with some people who were back here, and a lot of them didn't call me right away. And I reached out to them, and they were just like, "Hey, man, like we were waiting for you. We just wanted to give you your time. They wanted to make sure you were ready." And I was like, "Oh no, I'm good." I'll never forget this. Like I thought nothing was wrong with me, but I went to a New Year's Eve party. It was like 2015 going into 16 was the new year, and I'm at this party and everyone's drinking, and I had a beer in my hand, and I'm standing it was a house party. I'm standing in the middle of the living room, and one of my buddies comes up to me and he goes, "Are you having a good time?" And I go, "Yeah, why?" He goes, "Because you look like you want to fucking kill everybody." No, seriously, it was scary. It was scary because like I didn't even know I was doing it, but I guess like my posture, and I was like looking at everybody, like sizing everybody up.
Yeah.
And, like, the way my shoulders were tense, like I didn't even realize I was doing it, and I was like, wow, I really need to chill the fuck out. Like something is like, and I never got classified with PTSD. They called it bereavement. I only know this because when I was going through the medical screening for airborne, it popped up. Because I was really, really fucked up after seeing Staff Sergeant Davis killed. When you come home and they're like, "Have you been exposed to dead bodies?" and all, like that thing that everyone lies on.
Yeah.
I was kind of truthful, dude. I was like, I don't feel right. I remember in the barracks one time. I always tell this story. It sounds so stupid, but I was watching this movie with Brad Pitt, World War Z. And there's this scene where this Israeli soldier gets bit in the wrist by a zombie. And to stop like the zombie infection from getting into her body, he slices her arm off. And there's this graphic scene where she's holding the stub up and blood is like squirting out. And it reminded me of his arm. And I felt like I was going to fucking throw up. I ran outside and I was like hyperventilating. I had to breathe some air. I felt like I was going to puke for like 5 minutes. And it's like a trigger thing for me,
That sucks, man.
So, I mean, I'm good, but it just shows you that like you're human, and it's real. Like I tell people that a lot. Like I don't really run into like the people who are like, "Fuck ISIS, we should go over there and kill them." And I have, but I tell people like, dude, yes, I'm for it, but I'm like, dude, seeing people fucked up is not cool.
Yeah,
it's horrible.
Yeah,
yeah. So, I mean, that I had to deal with that, but it sounds weird, but like my breakthrough moment was one of my friends from high school called me, and she was going to run like a 10K road race, and like she had no one to go with her, and she calls me. She goes, "Hey, will you run this race for me?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Oh, that was easy." I'm like, "Yeah, fuck it, I'll do it." And I run this race, and it felt so good to just be outside and be with people and like do something cool. And like at that point I had started talking to her. She's like, "Oh, you're into this stuff." Like, I was working out and getting in shape and all that. She's like, "You should try doing like these things called Tough Mudders and Spartan races." And that night I felt like alive again. And that night I went and signed up for 2 Spartan races. Then I got into that stuff, and it was so cool, like being outside again and doing some of the military stuff, like, you're running and you're going over obstacles, and it's just a good feeling. You get a medal afterwards, but it's cool. Then after that, I got heavily involved in CrossFit. That was one of the big things that helped my transition. Was I say this to like a veteran getting out, is like, you should get involved in a community. Like, I'm with these people who I work out with. They're my really good friends. We hang out outside the gym. We do all kinds of stuff together, but it's a competitive, positive environment. Like, we're working out together. It sucks. We get humbled, but it's a community that's honestly, I think, helping me out. That's what I think veterans should get involved with, is, some kind of community thing. And, they say like a lot of veterans, I've heard this before, like veterans don't really want to be helped, but they want to help because we're like protectors and all that. So like, I remember we remodeled the gym and I gave up my whole weekend. I helped him like rebuild it. And I was like, he's like, you don't have to stay here. And I was like, oh, I'm good. I want to help you. It's like, that's the kind of people we are. And it felt good to do that.
Yeah. You had a community,
Exactly. Like, that really helped me out. So, I mean, if I couldn't complain. I mean, like I said in the beginning, I live super close to where I work. I have a ton of friends, and things are good.
That's good, man. Farrell, obviously. He just got into a cross country running group, like a trail running group, and he's kind of the same thing. Like, he's like, dude, it's just kind of nice to be around these people. I'm kind of the opposite. Well, I don't mind being around the people and stuff, but like when I go backpacking and stuff. So for those that don't know
that's
me,
a big thing too.
Yeah, for those that don't know me and Dimauro and two of our other buddies went out and did the Zion Traverse. So it was like 40 or 45 mile hike through the Zion National Park. But so I like going and doing stuff like that. But a lot of times, like with you guys, it's cool. But a lot of times I don't even care to go by. I like going by myself also, because it just kind of gives you time to think about everything, and you're out in nature. Your cell phone's not ringing. There's no email. There's no traffic. There's no like nothing, and that's why I try to do like hiking and stuff during the week when there's nobody going to be out there. It's probably more dangerous in some spots, but I mean, it's just nice to get out and clear your head. But it is also like, I got to find a community to get into, like I'm in school and stuff, which is cool. And there's communities, but it's communities full of like 18 and 19-year-olds. So I got to find.
I was just going to say, is it all like just young dudes who graduated high school and you?
Dude, it's, yeah. It's, there's actually a lot of females there. I'm in the journalism and media studies major. So there's a lot of females in that one. And just being around these like 18 to 22, basically, some of them are a little bit older because they went to community college a couple years before, but it's like being in the Marine Corps, but different because there's no, I don't know. It's not like the Marine Corps. Like, it's cool because you're around all these young people and like people are doing stuff, and it's, I don't know. It's just a nice environment, but it's a different environment than like the 18 to 22 year old.
You don't have to worry about like, losing a couple $1 million worth of equipment or like getting killed or just.
It's just, and it's just so relaxed, but it's also ridiculous. Like because it's like such a different environment and it feels so relaxed compared to what you come from, that it's like, you listen to people complain about stuff or just talk about stuff, and you're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? Like, why is that even an issue? Like, why is this, Yeah,
and I hear people bitch nowadays, and dude, I do not play that card, the I did this card, but like in my head, I'm like, I'm saying this to myself, I'm like, dude, on my second deployment, I went fucking like, 35 days without showering. Like, you can suck that shit up,
Yeah. I don't normally bring up like, I mean, if people ask me, I have zero. I mean, I'm running a fucking podcast talking about military stuff. So,
but I'd rather talk about it with guys like you. I don't like talking about it with random people.
See, for me, I don't. I mean, obviously, there's some stuff I won't talk about with random people. But if it's like if someone in my classroom asks, like, "Hey, you were in the Marines. Like, were you in combat?" I try to tell them like the reality, because all these college students think every veteran gets out and has severe PTSD and they've all killed people and they've all been in combat, and I'm like, what you are thinking of is less than 1%. Like the actual combat vets, maybe 10% of the military, maybe 10%. I don't even know, but it's like less than that now. But I just try to, I don't care, I don't mind telling my story and telling them my perspective, because I feel like there's so many people that are ignorant to what is actually happening in the military. They're ignorant to what it is to be a veteran and stuff like that. So I don't know. It's
just like, I find it hard because like sometimes I could be wrong, but you know, some of the stories that I told you about, like, you know, putting hellfires into buildings and like seeing the dude die, it's like, some of it sounds so crazy. I feel like people think I'm lying.
I don't think people, so for me on that, I think people think I'm crazy. Like, I don't talk about...
I'm not making this shit up. I didn't ask for it. It's just how it played out.
I don't describe... I will talk about, like, I was in Afghanistan. Yeah, I controlled CAS, you know, close air support. This is my job. But I won't, for regular people, I won't describe, like, oh, yeah, this round hit, and then it blew up, and this happened to the guy, and he survived, and he had this wounds, but just because they won't understand, and I think, like, because you're not in that world... It's easy to judge. Like, I was showing a dude a strike video on Instagram. Like, there was some strike video, and there was a guy at my neighbor's house that we hung out a few times. I was like, check this out. I was like, that's pretty wild. And he's just like, what the fuck? You could tell he was like looking at me like, why the fuck are you watching that? And then a different day, I was like, hey man, you should check out this like cool military video. It was something completely different. He's like, it's not going to have anybody getting killed, is it? And I was like, oh, my bad, man. I was like, I'm not crazy, I swear. It's just... You know.
Yeah. With that being said, like you're despite what I just said, it's like, yes, when I'm talking to like normal people, I'm like, yeah, it was a hellfire type. No, I do not get that detail because you'll lose them, and it's only with like people like you that know what the hell I'm saying, you know. But I don't know.
It's just a different world.
It is.
Anyway, well, I think it's a good spot to call it quits, dude. Thanks for coming on the show. Like, you want to. You want to throw out any Instagram, your box's Instagram, or whatever you CrossFit people call it?
I'll leave them out of it. But, yeah, you can follow my Instagram. It's at Andrew _Dimauro. That's Dimauro. I'm on there pretty frequently.
Sick, man. If anybody has any questions for Andrew or just want to talk shit, send them in to me at J Kramer Graphics. You can hit him up directly.
We did a lot of work together, so...
Yeah. And then make sure to check out my website, jkramergraphics.com. I do freelance graphic design. I can do shirts, hoodies, mugs, whatever for your unit, your company. So let me know. And... Yeah. Oh, and the podcast is streaming, just so people are aware, because I've had to make some adjustments. Podcast is streaming on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, and my main app that I record with is Spreaker, Spreaker. That's also a podcast app. You can download my podcast on any of those platforms for free, so please do that. Please share it. Please like it. Give me some reviews. I think I have 5-star reviews on Apple Podcasts right now. No comments yet, though, so if anybody has any comments, feel free to leave them out. I'll read them on air. I don't care if they're good or bad. And, yeah, I mean, I guess that's really it, man. You got anything before we cut it?
Nah, appreciate it.
Hey, you too, man. All right, everyone take it easy, and I'll talk to you next week.